Chapter 749. With the powerful energy replenishment, sure enough, the origin realm expanded again. Originally, countless planets appeared in Yang Tian's origin realm. Later on, galaxies were formed, and then black holes appeared. This time, as the origin realm expanded, Yang Tian felt that something new would appear in the origin realm. Yang Tian was looking forward to it, but more than that, he was worried. This was because as the origin realm expanded, he could clearly feel that his consciousness's control over this world was rapidly weakening. Unless he could strengthen his consciousness. That's it. Yang Tian suddenly remembered that he had obtained a lot of purple crystals when he killed those white life bugs. The purple liquid in these purple crystals could strengthen his consciousness. Yang Tian felt the changes in the origin realm while taking out a fist-sized purple crystal from his storage bracelet. After crushing the purple crystal until a few cracks appeared, Yang Tian directly put it to his lips and sucked hard. The purple liquid in the crystal was sucked into his mouth and swallowed into his stomach. In fact, using his mind power to absorb this purple liquid was more efficient. However, now that the energy world had changed, Yang Tian could not use his mind power, so he could only use this method. After the purple liquid entered his body, it turned into special energy. About 1/10 of it was absorbed by the cells in his body. Yang Tian thought that this was a waste, but the reality was that this method was also very beneficial to his body. He did not know about it for now. After absorbing the purple liquid, Yang Tian could not help but feel refreshed. He could clearly feel that his control over the origin realm had become much stronger. However, this was not enough. Throwing away the crystal fragments that had turned white in his hand, Yang Tian took out a fist-sized purple crystal. Yang Tian had never experienced absorbing so much energy at once. After the energy was absorbed by the black hole, it was instantly converted into pure energy and appeared in Yang Tian's energy world. This was a risky move because Yang Tian felt that the origin realm had reached its limit and could not expand any further. Otherwise, he would lose control of the origin realm that became even larger. After all, the size of the energy world was directly related to the strength of one's consciousness. If the energy world was so large that it could not be restrained by one's consciousness, it would be a disaster. At best, all the energy in the energy world would dissipate. More seriously, the entire energy world would explode like a bomb. Rumble. In less than 3 minutes, the black hole released by Yang Tian began to spin while absorbing a huge amount of energy. It looked like a black propeller. As it spun, the energy absorption speed became faster and faster. The airflow in the entire sealed space was stirred up. The heavy red sand on the ground was blown away by the airflow and spread throughout the sealed space, gradually forming a red sand fog. As time passed, the red sand fog became thicker and thicker. In less than 10 minutes, the visibility in the sealed space was less than 30 meters. Yang Tian did not expect this result. What's this kid doing? The purple-robed administrator of the everlasting divine hall who had been monitoring Yang Tian had arrived beside him long ago. He was less than 10 meters away from Yang Tian. He watched as the energy was absorbed by the black hole created by Yang Tian and watched as Yang Tian constantly absorbed the purple crystals. He was unable to guess what Yang Tian was doing. However, his mission was only to ensure that Yang Tian did not leave. He could not interfere with what Yang Tian was doing. The red sand mist affected their vision, but it did not affect the battle between the cultivators and the exotic beasts by much. Not much time had passed, but there were not many exotic beasts left. Only the most powerful ones remained. The weaker ones had basically all been killed off by the cultivators. There were no more exotic beasts, but the cultivators began to kill one another. Obviously, it was for the colorful crystals within the exotic beasts. The energy crystals within the exotic beasts in the Sea of Stars were even more abundant. If used for cultivation, even a finger-sized piece could allow or return its cultivator to reach the illusion realm. It was expected that the energy crystals would be extremely valuable after this battle, because there were not many exotic beasts in the Sea of Stars. They would have to go to the Sea of Stars to obtain these crystals next time. However, was the Sea of Stars a place that could be entered so easily? Let alone being used for cultivation, these crystals would be rare treasures, even if they were used as part of a collection. Some people fought over the colorful crystals, while others used the opportunity to absorb the energy released by the crystals. At this moment, only the most powerful exotic beasts remained. The three hall masters and the administrators of the Divine Hall dealt with them. The cultivators who had nothing better to do hoped to stay in this space for a while longer. Who knew when they would have such a good opportunity to cultivate after leaving this place? With this thought in mind, they obviously hated Yang Tian. They wanted Yang Tian to die immediately. This was because the rate at which Yang Tian absorbed the energy was just too abnormal. They had no idea what cultivation method Yang Tian was using, but the energy in the sealed space was decreasing at an exponential rate. However, that was only a thought because they could only rely on Yang Tian if they wanted to leave this place. Moreover, the people of the Divine Hall were protecting Yang Tian. The little blue dragon had left Yang Tian's side long ago. Ever since the red sand had appeared, the little blue dragon had turned back into a mini dragon and gone to search for the colorful crystals. The little blue dragon was even more sensitive than humans when it came to searching for the energy crystals within exotic beasts. It moved extremely quickly as well, so it found over 100 colorful crystals buried in the red sand in just a few minutes. After finding the crystals, the little blue dragon did not directly swallow them. Instead, it put them into a special storage space within its body for later use. If they were to compare the amount of energy they had obtained, Yang Tian had obtained the most energy, followed by the little blue dragon. Boom! 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 The battle finally came to an end. Several explosions sounded. Then, a violent hurricane swept through the entire sealed space. It turned out that several powerful exotic beasts had self-destructed in succession. They wanted to take Guangxing, Jimi, and Yugue down with them. Exotic beasts were extremely proud. If they were recognized, they would not hesitate to sacrifice themselves for their master. However, if they wanted to forcefully take them as pet beasts, they would rather self-destruct. These exotic beasts were not as strong as the giant green tortoise in the lair of myriad beasts, but they were still able to shake the entire sealed space. If they were a little stronger, they would probably be able to destroy the seal. In that instant, many cultivators were injured. Some were even directly killed. Although Guangxing, Jimi, and Yugue were powerful, they were still injured by the energy from the self-destruction of the exotic beasts. Now, apart from the Beast King, all the exotic beasts had been destroyed. After the violent explosion, no one expected that the remaining powerful Beast King, including Yang Tian, would actually charge into Yang Tian's black hole of its own accord. Chapter 750. Yang Tian originally thought that no matter what it was, the black hole would suck it in. But when the red sand mist appeared, he realized that the tiny sand particles were excluded by the black hole. Yang Tian thought about it and felt that there were two reasons. First, because the energy that the red sand could provide was too little. Absorbing this energy was not enough to maintain the black hole's operation. Second, when the red sand mist appeared, there was a rejection of the black hole absorbing the sand. In order to test the idea in his mind, Yang Tian moved his mind and tried to let the black hole absorb the red sand into the black hole as well. In the end, the black hole still rejected these things that had no energy value. When he realized that the Beast King was rushing towards the black hole, Yang Tian could not help but be shocked. Ever since he had this ability, he had never absorbed anything with life. At this moment, Yang Tian wanted to stop the operation of this ability. However, the black hole was now operating very quickly and could not be stopped in a short period of time. Whoosh! There was a strong gust of wind. Yang Tian watched as the horned black cat rushed into the black hole. Whoosh! Then there was another gust of wind. Guangxing chased after him. When he saw the black hole in front of him, he wanted to stop, but his body was swept by the aura and was still rushing towards the black hole. Yang Tian's heart, at this moment, started to beat quickly again. It was nothing for an exotic beast to rush into his energy world, But if a human went in, Yang Tian could not imagine what would happen. Pong! There was a muffled sound. Kuang Xing, who was about to rush into the black hole, was actually bounced back. At the same time, the black hole shrank smaller and smaller. Soon, it turned into a small black dot and disappeared in a flash. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as the black hole disappeared, 3 gusts of wind sounded in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian's vision blurred. He saw the 3 palace masters, Kuang Xing, Jimi, and Yugue appear in front of him, less than 5 meters away from him. The 3 of them looked at Yang Tian coldly. "Let it out." After sizing up Yang Tian, Kuang Xing said coldly. Kuang Xing and the others thought that Yang Tian had taken the Beast King for himself. "It's already dead." Facing the 3 hall masters' sharp gazes, Yang Tian felt a lot of pressure. He said indifferently, "Any life form that enters my black hole world will be killed and turned into pure energy." "Kid, what kind of cultivation technique is this? How come I've never heard of it before?" After Yang Tian finished speaking, Yugue smirked and sneered. "No comment." Yang Tian replied firmly. Asking about other people's cultivation methods was a taboo in the cultivation world. If Yang Tian did not act tough at this time, these 3 people would definitely be suspicious. Jimi covered her mouth and smiled. In an instant, she changed from a man to a woman and said, "What he said should be true. In this world, no one has ever been able to directly take living things into their own energy world. If we can't do it, it's even more impossible for him to do it." It had to be said that Jimi was too conceited to say this. There were many strange people and strange things in the world. Even the temple master could not know all of them. "Open the seal. After you leave, follow me back to the everlasting temple." Jimi's words naturally would not dispel Kuang Xing's doubts about Yang Tian. As long as he brought Yang Tian back to the temple, no matter what tricks Yang Tian played, it would all be under his control. How could Yang Tian be willing to go to the everlasting temple with Kuang Xing? It would be no different from going to jail. Fortunately, Yang Tian had already thought of a way. But now, Yang Tian had to deal with an extremely troublesome matter. That was the Beast King that had entered his body. Yang Tian lied to Kuang Xing and the others. After the Beast King entered the black hole, it was not killed. This guy actually resisted and successfully entered Yang Tian's energy world. If it did not want to become Kuang Xing's pet beast, and at the same time, it did not want to be killed by Kuang Xing and the others. Entering the Black Passage was the only choice for this Beast King. When it came out of the black hole, the Beast King saw a vast universe. In this world, it did not expect that it was actually an energy world inside a cultivator's body. After flying for a long time in the boundless space, the Beast King could not find a way out. In the end, it could only land on one of the planets. On this planet, there were countless azure dragons, many green plants, mountains, and rivers. Everything was formed by Yang Tian's energy, especially the azure dragons, which were formed by the pure power of the dragon pearl. As soon as the Beast King arrived, it started fighting with these azure dragons. It was not that these azure dragons had their own consciousness, but because they had a natural rejection of external energy. Although it had suffered heavy injuries and consumed more than half of the energy in its body, this Beast King's fighting strength was still strong. In a moment, it killed more than 10 azure dragons. After these azure dragons were scattered by the Beast King, they turned into pure energy and permeated the surroundings. The Beast King did not stand on ceremony and immediately absorbed this energy into its body to replenish its consumption. In this world, Yang Tian was a god. With a thought, he could kill this Beast King. However, Yang Tian did not intend to do so, because this was a very unusual thing. Living things could exist in his energy world. Yang Tian was preparing to figure out what was going on and estimate what changes would happen after this exotic beast entered his energy world. He did not expect Kuang Xing and the others to appear. Yang Tian could only place his attention on Kuang Xing and the others. "Returning to the temple with you, no problem. But what I want to know is it over so soon? Where's the Talisman Lord?" Yang Tian asked. That old thing has already escaped. If he still doesn't leave, When Yang Tian asked this, Yu Gui said somewhat angrily. After interacting with these three temple masters for a short while, Yang Tian already knew their temperaments. Kuang Xing was calm, Jimi was somewhat indecisive, and Yu Gui was easily irritable. The three of them had a common point. Of course, that was arrogance. This was a problem that almost all supreme experts had. What Yang Tian did not expect was that the Talisman Master had actually escaped. Well, it was not exactly escaping, but temporarily avoiding. With Yang Tian's understanding of the Talisman Master, this old fellow could endure pain and torture that ordinary people could not endure in order to achieve his goals. This matter was not over yet. Yang Tian kept the black hole, and the energy from the explosions of the exotic beasts also disappeared. In this place, shrouded in sealed energy, the speed of the airflow slowed down. The red sand in the air quickly settled down, and the vision became clearer. Yang Tian originally wanted to ask what benefits Kuang Xing and the others had obtained, but he knew that it would be useless. After seeing Kuang Xing's impatient gaze, he immediately smiled and said, "Breaking this seal will take some time. This is because this seal can absorb the energy in this space to strengthen itself." After a brief explanation, Yang Tian turned around and faced the invisible energy wall. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and the little blue dragon, who had gained a lot, landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. It looked at Kuang Xing and the others with vigilance. Trapped here, the surviving cultivators were less than 1/5 of the original number. It was a heavy loss. After all the exotic beasts were eliminated, they all gathered and waited for Yang Tian to open the seal. Yang Tian had already planned it out. When the passage was opened, he would take advantage of the moment to escape from Kuang Xing and the others' control. Whether he could succeed or not would depend on the strange program. However, what Yang Tian did not expect was that before the exit was opened, his energy world changed. Previously, because he had absorbed a large amount of energy and consumed a large amount of purple liquid, Yang Tian had energy and powerful consciousness that exceeded the illusion realm. The catalyst for the change was the Beast King that rushed into Yang Tian's energy world. When this guy had absorbed enough energy and recovered from its injuries, it began to level up. When it advanced, it was simply earth-shattering. The azure dragons on the entire planet that were transformed from the power of the Dragon Pearl were intimidated by its aura and turned into strands of azure energy that entered its body. This was Yang Tian's energy world. As soon as there was a change in the energy, it would affect the entire energy world. The planet that the Beast King was on and everything on the planet were formed by energy. When it was madly absorbing the energy, all the azure dragons disappeared. Then it was the turn of the plants, the ocean, the rocks, and finally, the entire planet began to shake and cracks appeared. Finally, with a boom, it shattered. Roar! When the fragments of the planet were all absorbed by the Beast King let out a roar that shook the universe. In this short process, the Beast King had finally completed its level up. Even the Beast King himself felt that the change was very strange. Because how could it be so easy to level up while cultivating in the sea of stars? Without much time to think, this guy who thought that he had obtained great benefits closed his eyes and began to sleep in the void. At the same time, Yang Tian suddenly had an epiphany in his mind. A paragraph of text that he had seen before also involuntarily appeared in his consciousness. This was the text on the scroll that he had obtained in the Dragon Starfield. Yang Tian had never understood it, but now he finally understood. The Beast King, who had absorbed a lot of Yang Tian's energy, had exposed all its secrets to Yang Tian. It could be said that Yang Tian's understanding of the Beast King was even clearer than the Beast King himself. So this is the profound meaning of life, Yang Tian sighed in his heart. Then, Yang Tian leveled up. From the illusion realm, he leveled up to the destiny realm. Yang Tian knew that from now on, he could finally create a real life form with flesh and blood in his energy world. Of course, these were not the only benefits. After reaching the destiny realm, he could mobilize even more energy. After calming down and cultivating in seclusion for a period of time, his physical body would become even stronger and more perfect. Unfortunately, Yang Tian was under the noses of Kuang Xing and the others. He could only suppress the excitement in his heart and the urge to try and consolidate his cultivation. This kid actually leveled up at this time. During the process of Yang Tian leveling up from the illusion realm to the destiny realm, the energy changes in his body naturally could not be hidden from Kuang Xing and the others. Yu Gui looked at Yang Tian and laughed disdainfully. Even if Yang Tian had leveled up to the destiny realm, there was still a huge gap between their realms. Jimmy smiled and said, "That's because he absorbed enough energy before. We worked ourselves to death, so it was easy for him. However, this level of comprehension is rare in this world." At this time, no one noticed that when Kuang Xing looked at Yang Tian's back, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 751. Some people only saw Yang Tian's current realm, but they didn't see how young Yang Tian was. It could be said that very few cultivators as young as Yang Tian could reach the illusion realm, let alone the destiny comprehension realm. When Kuang Xing was Yang Tian's age, his realm wasn't even as high as Yang Tian's. One had to know that Kuang Xing's age was thousands of times older than Yang Tian's. Kuang Xing already had the intention to kill Yang Tian. As long as he brought Yang Tian back to the everlasting temple, with his power, he could kill Yang Tian however he wanted Yang Tian to die. Previously, the strange program had already calculated the principle of the seal array. The only change in the array was the seal's energy. After reaching the destiny comprehension realm, Yang Tian's energy output was even greater. The strange program quickly opened a passage through Yang Tian's hands. "We can leave now." After the passage opened, Yang Tian turned around and said indifferently. In order to complete the next step of the plan, Yang Tian said, "I have to be the last to leave. Otherwise, the array might shut down at any time." Hearing Yang Tian's words, Kuang Xing's eyes narrowed slightly. Clearly, he didn't believe Yang Tian's words. Kuang Xing wasn't completely ignorant about array glyphs. He knew that even if Yang Tian withdrew the energy now, the passage would still be able to hold on for a while. And this period of time was enough for him to bring Yang Tian out. Kuang Xing, who thought that he had guessed Yang Tian's thoughts, waved his hand. The surviving disciples of the temple left the sealed space one after another through the passage opened by Yang Tian. Next were the other rogue cultivators and some cultivators from the family clans. In the end, only Yang Tian, Kuang Xing, and the other two temple masters were left. Jimmy and Yu Gui took one last look at Yang Tian and Kuang Xing before quickly walking out. "Temple Master, please." After Jimmy and Yu Gui left, Yang Tian glanced at Kuang Xing and said indifferently. His intention was to let Kuang Xing leave first. Kuang Xing looked at Yang Tian and couldn't help but laugh. He thought that he had seen through Yang Tian's plan. He thought that as soon as he left, Yang Tian would seal off the passage. If he couldn't get out from the inside, then it must be the same from the outside. This way, Yang Tian would be out of his control. "You go first." Kuang Xing smirked and said in a commanding tone. "This." Yang Tian pretended to be stunned for a moment, then said in a helpless tone, "All right then." After saying that, Yang Tian slowly walked towards the passage. Just as his body entered the tunnel, Yang Tian's right index finger moved, and a faint rune energy fluctuation was emitted from Yang Tian's fingertip. Yang Tian's subtle movement was also noticed by Kuang Xing. He opened his eyes and raised his hand to slap at Yang Tian's back. In order to kill Yang Tian, Kuang Xing used the strongest power he could muster right now. Although Yang Tian had already planned it out, playing little tricks under Kuang Xing's nose was also taking a huge risk. Because if he was discovered by Kuang Xing, with Kuang Xing's ability, before he left, he could deliver a fatal blow. Under the hands of a powerhouse like Kuang Xing, wanting to seize a chance of survival was a matter of life and death. The two were really too close, less than 10 meters. Kuang Xing could hit Yang Tian with a raise of his hand. In an instant, The space in front of Yang Tian rippled, and a temporary spatial passage appeared. As long as he entered this spatial passage, he would be safe, under the control of the strange program. Even if Kuang Xing chased him into this spatial passage, he would not be able to track down Yang Tian. The strange program learned from the Rune Master's methods. It connected a spatial passage to many destinations, and those who entered would be randomly teleported to different places. The sharp palm energy was aimed at Yang Tian's back. If Yang Tian was hit, his body would explode. In order to numb Kuang Xing, Yang Tian only used his mind energy to defend. Only with mind energy could he not be discovered by Kuang Xing. At this moment, when he felt the powerful energy coming from behind him, Yang Tian's heart was like dead ashes. This was an energy that he could not resist. Facing it, Yang Tian felt as if his body was made of tofu. Pong! There was a loud sound. The powerful impact of the energy knocked Yang Tian into the spatial passage. The moment he rushed into the spatial passage, a middle-aged man's voice rang in Yang Tian's ears. Little Miss Inshi wants me to tell you that the favor has been repaid. While the voice was still ringing in his ears, Yang Tian had already passed through the spatial passage and appeared underground. The ground was not safe, and the shattered space from before could hide his presence. The natural talisman arrays of his continent were almost destroyed. If it were not for the remnants, the entire continent would have been split into several pieces. But it seemed that it would not be able to last much longer. Little Miss Inshi, Yu Inshi of the Undead Clan. The figure of a little girl suddenly appeared in Yang Tian's mind. When Yu Inshi sneaked onto the ship, Yang Tian had no choice but to bring her to this world. After that, this mysterious little girl helped Yang Tian and immediately left, never to be seen again. Unexpectedly, when Yang Tian was between life and death, she appeared again and helped Yang Tian. Thinking that it was Yu Inshi, Yang Tian wanted to go back immediately. But after thinking about it, he decided not to. If he went back now, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? Now that he had finally escaped, he would have a lot of time to figure out these things in the future. Kuang Xing's fatal palm strike towards Yang Tian was blocked by someone. When he rushed out of the passage, a middle-aged man in tight red clothes with short hair appeared in Kuang Xing's eyes. It looked very neat and tidy. Without guessing, Kuang Xing knew that the palm strike just now was blocked by this person. Who are you? Although he had already guessed it, Kuang Xing still frowned and asked. Although the middle-aged man's appearance was ordinary, his aura was not weaker than Kuang Xing's. Because Kuang Xing was injured, his aura was even much stronger than Kuang Xing's. Looking at Kuang Xing's dissatisfaction and alertness, the middle-aged man said expressionlessly, "My name is Yuan Star. I was ordered by my mother to help Yang Tian with a small favor." "Yuan family?" Kuang Xing gritted his teeth. Yuan Star said, "That's right. My business is done. I'm leaving." After saying that, the silent sound, Star left very neatly, just like how he dressed. Looking at Yuan Star disappearing from his sight, Kuang Xing roared and slammed his palm toward a sand dune in front of him. Boom! The huge sand dune was flattened by Kuang Xing's palm strike, and red sand filled the sky. Facing the legendary Yuan family, Kuang Xing, as the Grand Master of the temple, did not dare to directly attack Yuan Star at this time, because he knew that with his current combat power, he could not defeat Yuan Star. The great tranquil sound star left the broad star at an extremely fast speed and soon stopped in a hidden sand valley. Puffed! At this time, Yuan Star covered his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at Yu Yingxi, who suddenly appeared and walked toward him, he said with a bitter smile, "Lil Miss, next time, ask 2-Star to do something like this. Are you okay?" Yu Yingxi looked at Yuan Star, who seemed to be injured, and asked worriedly. Yuan Star waved his hand, as expected of the Grand Master of the Everlasting Temple. "If it wasn't because he was injured and exhausted, I wouldn't have been able to come back. Don't worry, Lil Miss. Yang Tian has left safely." Yu Yingxi's appearance at this time was different from what Yang Tian remembered. Before, she was 8 or 9 years old. Now, she was at least 12 or 13 years old. Compared to before, her height had increased by at least 10 centimeters. This little girl that was taken in by Grandmaster Xing, he did not grow for 10,000 years. She was mistaken as an undead. After returning to this world, she finally began to grow normally. Chapter 752. After the natural talisman array was destroyed, countless chaotic spaces were formed. In these spaces, the spatial energy was chaotic. Even if Kuang Xing had great abilities, he wouldn't be able to find Yang Tian. After arriving here, Yang Tian finally felt relieved. Now he could focus on organizing his cultivation realm and the huge amount of energy he had just obtained. Also, Yang Tian had to fix the Beast King that ran into the energy world. He might even get rid of this hidden danger. According to this world's description of the Destiny Comprehension realm, Destiny Comprehension was to comprehend the profound meaning of life and turn the energy world into a complete universe where life could exist. Yang Tian had a deep understanding of this. It was because the Beast King entered Yang Tian's energy world and absorbed a large amount of Yang Tian's energy that Yang Tian was able to understand some secrets about the structure of life from the Beast King. This allowed him to successfully advance from the illusion realm to the Destiny Comprehension realm. This didn't mean that cultivators who had reached the Destiny Comprehension realm had the ability to create life. Understanding and creating were two completely different concepts. Through this advancement, Yang Tian had a clearer understanding of cultivation. In essence, it was still a kind of evolution. It was a higher-level evolution of life. If Yang Tian's cultivation was divided into 3 stages, the first stage would undoubtedly start from Earth and end when he came to this world. This was only the initial stage. It was mainly to strengthen himself. Now, Yang Tian had entered the second stage, which was the intermediate stage. It was mainly to comprehend the profound meaning of life and lay a good foundation for the third stage. Yang Tian guessed that the third stage was to completely understand the structure of this world from the inside out. The second stage should stop at the soul travel realm. The third stage was probably something that could only be truly experienced after reaching the deity realm. After calming down, Yang Tian had never thought about cultivation in such detail. This might be related to the information recorded on the scroll. Originally, Yang Tian thought that the black-clothed masked man with the green bird was a realm protector. The strongest he could be was only the strongest person in this world. But now, it seemed that things weren't that simple. Is there a fourth stage? In Yang Tian's opinion, the fourth stage was probably the limit. However, this world was too big. The more powerful one was, the wider the world one would see. Perhaps there would be even bigger new worlds. Who could say for sure? After summing up, Yang Tian controlled his consciousness and descended into the original realm. After absorbing enough energy, the Beast King was sleeping in the void. It looked very peaceful. When Yang Tian's consciousness approached it, it suddenly opened its eyes, and an ominous glint flashed in its eyes. The Beast King could only sense Yang Tian's consciousness, but he couldn't find it. In this world, Yang Tian's consciousness was everywhere. He was the god of this world. Although the Beast Kings were powerful, they were still under Yang Tian's control in this world. Especially after the Beast King absorbed a large amount of Yang Tian's energy, it had no choice but to be at the mercy of Yang Tian. Until now, the Beast King hadn't expected what kind of situation it was about to face. Although it sensed that there was something very powerful beside it, so powerful that it felt unable to resist, the Beast King still let out an angry roar. Its voice echoed in Yang Tian's world of energy. Following that, the Beast King began to scurry around in Yang Tian's world of energy. It flew around randomly. What shocked the Beast King was that no matter where it flew, it always felt that something was following it. No matter what it did, it couldn't get rid of it. In his own world of energy, Yang Tian was a godlike existence. None of the Beast King's movements could escape his perception. Seeing that the Beast King was about to go crazy, Yang Tian felt that it was time to appear in front of the Beast King. Roar, the helpless and proud Beast King raised its head and let out a roar full of resentment. This roar was only halfway through when it suddenly stopped. because Yang Tian had appeared in front of the Beast King. The Beast King had obviously seen Yang Tian before. When Yang Tian appeared, the Beast King remembered that this person in front of it was standing behind the most powerful human. At that time, the Beast King only glanced at Yang Tian. Its gaze stopped on Yang Tian for less time than it stopped on the little blue dragon, because at that time, Yang Tian was really too weak in the Beast King's eyes. But now, Yang Tian gave the Beast King a mysterious feeling, as well as an uncertain feeling. When it saw the smile in Yang Tian's eyes, the Beast King interpreted it as a mocking smile. It couldn't help but be furious. Its figure moved, and it charged towards Yang Tian. The Beast King had grown a little. Compared to before, it was a full size bigger. However, this size was still very small among the exotic beasts. But it was undeniable that this small body was filled with energy several times more powerful than the little blue dragon. The Beast King was very fast. Its body turned into a streak of black light. If it was outside, Yang Tian wouldn't even have time to dodge. He wouldn't be able to react at all. But this was Yang Tian's energy world. Everything was under Yang Tian's control. The Beast King's movements appeared clearly in Yang Tian's consciousness. From Yang Tian's point of view, the Beast King's movements were no different from slow motion. In that instant, the Beast King saw that Yang Tian didn't dodge. It couldn't help but sneer in its heart. It believed that as long as its claws touched Yang Tian's body, it would be able to tear Yang Tian to pieces. The Beast King's most powerful body parts were its claws and the pair of horns on its head. In the face of the Beast King's attack, Yang Tian only raised his right hand and pointed his index finger at the Beast King. The Beast King's rapidly moving body suddenly stopped. The Beast King's claws were less than a meter away from Yang Tian's fingertips. The Beast King seemed to have been immobilized. It was frozen in the air. At this moment, the Beast King suddenly felt its entire body go numb. It couldn't exert any strength at all. It couldn't even do something as small as blinking its eyes. Luckily, it could still think normally. Even a god wouldn't be able to trap it like this, right? The Beast King was shocked. It wondered if it was dreaming or if it had already died and came to another world. Otherwise, how could a puny human become so powerful? At this moment, it wasn't just the Beast King who was shocked. Even Yang Tian himself was very surprised. This was because he didn't expect that with just a thought, he could make the Beast King motionless and turn it into a statue without any ability to resist. Yang Tian could imagine that if he had made the Beast King die immediately, the situation would have been the same as he imagined. Yang Tian only thought of the word death. The Beast King, who was motionless but didn't stop thinking, suddenly felt an extreme fear. It was the fear of facing death. This was even more frightening than when it was almost killed by Kuo-Xing. At least it could resist Kuo-Xing's hands. But now it couldn't do anything. Even if it wanted to self-destruct and die together with Yang Tian, it couldn't do it. Chapter 753. Luckily, this feeling of death only appeared for a moment before disappearing. Compared to humans, the Beast King wasn't stupid at all. Naturally, it understood that the reason why it appeared like it was about to be killed was because Yang Tian wanted to kill it. Luckily, this thought only appeared for a moment before disappearing. It seemed like this was an unintentional thought. Although the shadow of death had dissipated, the Beast King became even more afraid. This was the first time it had encountered such a situation, and it hoped that it would end quickly. This kind of psychological torture was even more unbearable than physical pain. Yang Tian circled around the Beast King and strolled in the air. Finally, he came before the Beast King and was less than a meter away. He bent down slightly and moved his head closer to the Beast King, carefully observing this strange, exotic beast. At first glance, the Beast King's fur was black, but upon closer inspection, one would realize that this fur was actually green, dark green, and there was more than one color. Among them, there were many golden, red, white fur of various colors. There were fewer of these colors, and it was hard to notice from afar. This was actually one of the Beast King's abilities. The fur on its body could actually change according to the environment. For example, In an environment with a red background, it could turn red. In an environment with a blue background, it could turn blue. In that kind of environment, the Beast King should have turned red. That way, with the color of the surrounding red sand, it could actually last longer under Quang Shing's attacks. It was just that it didn't want to do so. With the Beast King's arrogant personality, it felt that although Quang Shing was strong, it couldn't force it to hide by changing the color of its fur. In fact, in that situation, if it wasn't for the three powerhouses working together, Quang Shing would have to spend a long time to defeat the Beast King alone. Seeing Yang Tian's eyes so close, the Beast King recalled its usual prestige and felt even more wronged. Yang Tian looked at the Beast King's fur, then shifted his gaze to its pair of horns. The Beast King's green horns were somewhat similar to the little blue dragon's horns, and their surface was covered with mysterious patterns. However, Yang Tian felt that the strength of the Beast King's horns was inferior to the little blue dragon's horns. This was not because Yang Tian was biased, but because it was based on facts. Just now, when this guy attacked him, he was under great pressure. He should have used his strongest attack. If the Beast King's horns were the most powerful, it would have used them to ram Yang Tian. Yang Tian studied the Beast King for a few minutes. It didn't take long, but to the Beast King, every minute felt as long as a few days. Just as the Beast King was about to collapse, Yang Tian finally spoke. "Do you know why you're like this?" After Yang Tian straightened his back, he paced around the Beast King in the void with his hands behind his back. This was a question that the Beast King really wanted to know. The Beast King wanted to ask why, but his body couldn't move, so he could only say these three words in his heart. As Yang Tian spoke, he glanced at the Beast King and continued, "Because of you, you enter my energy world and absorb my energy. This is really a very strange thing. I've never heard of a living strange beast being able to enter a cultivator's energy world alive. It's really hard to understand. What's even stranger is that because of you, I actually advanced from the illusion realm to the destiny realm." Yang Tian spoke for a few minutes. He didn't know why he said so much to the Beast King. The Beast King couldn't move. Otherwise, his cat-like face would definitely show shock, pain, regret, and many other expressions. In order not to be caught by Quang Shing and the others, the Beast King didn't want to die in their hands. Helpless, he could only rush toward the black hole released by Yang Tian. What he didn't expect was that after avoiding Quang Shing and the others, he would end up in Yang Tian's hands. All kinds of negative emotions filled the Beast King's mind. "Now, I'll give you freedom, but you have to promise to cooperate with my research. Perhaps I can let you go." While the Beast King was in incomparable pain, Yang Tian suddenly spoke. Just as Yang Tian's voice faded, the Beast King suddenly realized that he could move. After regaining his freedom, the first thing the Beast King wanted to do was to destroy himself. To him, being trapped by Yang Tian like this was better than dying. To the proud Beast King, there was absolutely no such compromise as a bad life is better than a good death. Its way of self-destruction was to self-destruct. In an instant, it would destroy the energy crystal in its body. The energy released from the energy crystal could not only cause the body to explode, but also produce a powerful force that could injure the enemy. Yang Tian didn't expect that this small, strange beast would have such a stubborn temper. It would rather die than cooperate with his research. Yang Tian didn't have any intention of using this strange beast. He only wanted it to cooperate and help him. After the deed was done, he would definitely restore its freedom. Although it had heard Yang Tian say this before, the Beast King didn't believe Yang Tian at all. If strange beasts believed humans, they would have been destroyed countless times over. Fortunately, Yang Tian was able to sense the energy fluctuation within the Beast King's body. This method of self-destruction required a process. Before the energy crystal in the Beast King's body shattered, Yang Tian had a thought. The energy in the Beast King's body that was gathering towards the energy crystal suddenly stopped. Only then did the Beast King realize that it wasn't just its body. Even the energy in its body wasn't under its control. In other words, under Yang Tian's control, the Beast King couldn't even control its own life and death. This was undoubtedly a very sad thing. To an intelligent life, the most painful thing was losing the right to die. Sigh. Yang Tian sighed helplessly. At this moment, Yang Tian could feel the pain in the Beast King's heart. He could tell just by looking at its eyes. The originally spirited Beast King seemed to have lost its life in the blink of an eye, turning into an inanimate object. At this moment, the Beast King's heart was about to die. A Beast King like this obviously couldn't help Yang Tian. Yang Tian didn't want to kill it, so he said, "All right, since you're not willing, I'll let you go." As he spoke, Yang Tian restored the Beast King's freedom. The Beast King's eyes lit up a little when Yang Tian said that. Looking at Yang Tian, the Beast King raised its spirits a little, but it still didn't believe Yang Tian. Yang Tian pointed at the black hole, not far away. "You can leave from there. I've already opened a passage for you." Before Yang Tian finished speaking, the Beast King turned into a streak of black light and rushed toward the black hole. In almost the blink of an eye, the Beast King's small body disappeared into the black hole. Would this affect Yang Tian's cultivation? Because it was precisely because of the Beast King's arrival that Yang Tian advanced to the Destiny Comprehension realm. Yang Tian had naturally thought about this question. The answer was no. Otherwise, Yang Tian wouldn't have let the Beast King leave. Yang Tian didn't have the noble moral character to sacrifice himself for the sake of the Beast King. This advancement was because Yang Tian had comprehended it. It wasn't because of the Beast King's presence in this world of energy that he advanced to the Destiny Comprehension realm. After the Beast King rushed into the black hole, its eyes lit up. At this moment, it had already come out of Yang Tian's world of energy. At this moment, the Beast King was shocked to discover that the energy it had absorbed from Yang Tian's world of energy had disappeared. Or it could be said that it couldn't use this energy anymore. There was also an energy world in the Beast King's body. What was different from human cultivators was that this kind of energy world existed in the energy crystals in the body. This was actually similar to the little blue dragon's Dragon Balls. There wasn't much difference. Fortunately, although it couldn't use this energy, its realm didn't drop. As long as it absorbed enough energy in the future, it could recover. After sensing the changes in its body, the Beast King was only startled for a moment. Then it glanced at Yang Tian and turned to escape. Wait a moment. Before it could run far, the Beast King heard Yang Tian's voice. Immediately after, a golden light flashed in front of the Beast King's eyes. The little blue dragon blocked in front of it. Chapter 754. The Beast King stopped after being stopped by the little blue dragon. He then turned around and looked at Yang Tian in confusion. Yang Tian smiled and said, "Don't misunderstand. I just want to ask you some questions about Shanghai." The Beast King then understood why Yang Tian asked him to stop. He was not worried that Yang Tian would harm him, because if Yang Tian wanted to kill him, he could have killed him with just a thought when he was in Yang Tian's energy world. He would not have released him before killing him. That would be too troublesome. All right. The Beast King stared into Yang Tian's eyes and agreed without hesitation. He then said, "You must have a lot of questions, and I want to return to Shanghai as soon as possible. How about this? I'll leave you a part of my memory." Boom! As soon as the Beast King finished speaking, the entire space shook. The Beast King looked around and said, "The space in this world is no longer stable." With that, the Beast King closed his eyes. A moment later, a light blue bead the size of a finger appeared on the Beast King's forehead. After condensing the blue bead, the Beast King used his consciousness to control the bead and flew toward Yang Tian. This was the bead that the Beast King used his own energy to wrap the memory information. Yang Tian was still unable to do something like this. Just absorb it into your energy world. This is all I know. I hope it can help you. Now that this place is going to be destroyed, I have to leave. Goodbye. After the Beast King finished speaking, his body turned into a black light and swept past the little azure dragon. Soon, he disappeared. Yang Tian did not do as the Beast King said and put the blue bead into his energy world. Instead, he used his spiritual energy to wrap it up. Then, Yang Tian controlled his spiritual energy and slowly penetrated into the bead. The spiritual energy contained Yang Tian's consciousness. When the energy on the outer shell of the bead dissipated, the memory information contained within was transmitted to Yang Tian's mind through Yang Tian's consciousness and stored in his brain. By doing this, Yang Tian could not only ensure that the memories given to him by the Beast King were intact, but he could also prevent the Beast King from tampering with the energy body. This was the benefit of possessing mental power. The Beast King didn't do anything to the blue energy body, but if he absorbed it into the energy world and digested the memories, he might lose a lot. When the Beast King provided Yang Tian with his memories, he did not go through any special screening because he was in a hurry to leave. He thought that Yang Tian would definitely lose a portion of his memories in the process of absorbing them. Nonetheless, it did not expect Yang Tian to possess mental power. Kuo-shing had originally wanted to obtain these memories, but who would have thought that Yang Tian would be the one to benefit in the end? Sometimes, being kind would bring about unexpected benefits. Yang Tian didn't have the time to carefully examine the Beast King's memories. To him, there was still another troublesome matter. "Xiaolong, let's go," Yang Tian said with a frown as he looked at the situation around him and felt the spatial energy fluctuations become more and more intense. Ever since he was transported here by the strange program, there was chaotic spatial energy everywhere. If other cultivators were to come here, they would be lost. The little blue dragon returned to Yang Tian's side and immediately transformed into a dragon more than 10 meters long. Yang Tian immediately sat on its back. The strange program also began to move at this moment and quickly opened a temporary spatial passage in front of them. Because of the chaotic spatial energy, such a spatial passage could not exist for long. Once the passage opened, the little blue dragon swung its tail and quickly rushed through. After passing through the formless spatial passage, what appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes was a new space. Large pieces of light purple crystals floated in this space. They were all lice crystals. Judging from their color, these lice crystals were very pure. He had no idea how they were produced. With such a large space, it was impossible to calculate how many lice crystals there were. Although they did not contain as much energy as the life crystals produced in the bodies of exotic beasts, there were so many of them that it was still a considerable amount of wealth. However, Yang Tian did not have that much time to collect them. He had to immediately go deeper with the help of the strange program to prevent the destruction of the ley lines. That's right, ley lines. The human body had ley lines, the bodies of exotic beasts had ley lines, and so did this land. The ley lines of this land had long been infiltrated by natural rune rays and were indistinguishable from each other. Once the natural rune rays were destroyed, the ley lines would be destroyed as well. When that happened, this land would fall apart. Countless living creatures living on this land would die along with the land's collapse. When that happened, the land's environment would become very harsh. It would be very difficult for humans to find a place to live in peace. What would follow would be a war for survival and territory. The calamity would continue forever. If a capable person like the Talisman Master did bad things for his own selfish reasons, it would usually be earth-shattering. Yang Tian now had a deep understanding of that. If this land fell apart into countless pieces, it would not be in Yang Tian's interest. If he could prevent such a thing from happening, of course, Yang Tian would not hesitate to do so. Yang Tian had such an ability because he had a World Tree seed. If the World Tree seed was planted at the bottom of this land, with its developed roots, it could stabilize the entire land in a short period of time. The disaster that was about to happen would not happen. Moreover, with the World Tree seed, the land's environment would become more suitable for the survival and reproduction of life than it was now. The reason why Yang Tian knew that the World Tree could save the world was that he had received a reminder from the strange program. Looking at the lice crystals floating around, Yang Tian thought of the very important thing that he had to do immediately. He sighed helplessly. Although there were many lice crystals, due to time constraints, he could only collect a small portion. As the little blue dragon flew rapidly, it opened its mouth and sucked in all the lice crystals in front of it. On the other hand, Yang Tian waved his hands and used his mental power to sweep the large amounts of Laos crystals into his storage bracelet. Although it was continuously collecting the lice crystals, the little blue dragon did not slow down at all. Wherever it passed, it formed a spacious passage. In less than 3 minutes, Yang Tian had passed through the entire space. After pausing for a moment, the strange program opened a passage to the next space. The space that appeared again was filled with rocks and countless red fragments of natural talisman array energy lines. This space was extremely unstable. There was even a small area of spatial annihilation. One had to be very careful when traveling through such a space. Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous. After about 10 minutes, he finally passed through this dangerous space. After about half an hour, after passing through 5 large and small spaces, the strange program finally brought Yang Tian to his destination. What appeared before Yang Tian's eyes was a huge black hole. From afar, one could see that the hole was surrounded by red rune energy lines. In the middle of the pit, there was a blue stump that looked like a tree stump. Chapter 755. This huge pit and the thing that looked like a tree stump in the pit could not help but make people think that there was a huge blue tree here before, and that the tree had been uprooted by someone. That was the real situation. What Yang Tian did not know was that in order to stop the Talisman Master, it was the 3 temple masters who did this. To them, other than their own interests and that of the temple, they would not consider anything else. Moreover, even if they did not do this, the Talisman Master would still get it in the end. Naturally, the 3 temple masters would not return empty-handed. In the process of fighting with the Talisman Master, the 3 temple masters had benefited the most, other than the Talisman Master. In fact, Yang Tian had already reached the bottom of the continent at this time, and he was right in the center. Because of the suction of the land, this huge pit looked as if it was under his feet. This was the same principle as a planet. In the boundless starry sky, who could tell the direction clearly? If Yang Tian flew towards a high altitude and escaped the gravity of the land, he would reach the sea of stars. With Yang Tian's current realm, he was still unable to survive in the sea of stars. Unless he was courting death, he would not do that. On the front of the land, the sky was light blue with clouds and stars. However, at the bottom of the continent, the sky was completely gray. Although there was light, it was very dim. A few hundred meters away, it had already become a blur. The little blue dragon carried Yang Tian and landed at the edge of the huge pit. At this time, Yang Tian realized that this pit was too big. Compared to the broken blue roots at the edge of the pit, he and the little blue dragon were as small as ants. Rumble. Yang Tian was just about to take a closer look at these blue roots when the land under his feet shook as if there was an earthquake, and cracks appeared. Of course, this was a real earthquake, and the entire continent was shaking. Countless tall mountains collapsed, and the water in the lakes seemed to be boiling. The volcanoes that had been silent for a long time erupted, and messy and deep rifts appeared on the ground. Exotic beasts ran amok, and the sky turned gray. The stars in the sky that were emitting light and heat according to a specific law began to shake because of the change in the gravity of the land. It looked like they could fall to the ground at any time. It was a scene of doomsday. Limitless shrine, limitless palace. Because it was floating in the sky and the foundation of the palace was protected by a huge array formation, when the entire continent was shaking and splitting apart, the huge palace only shook slightly. The master of this palace, Kuang Xing, Ji Mi of the Heaven Domain God Palace, and Yu Ge of the Starry Sky God Palace had already gathered here. They stood at the entrance of the palace and looked down at the changes in the distant mountains. Looking at the doomsday-like scene, the eyes of the 3 were filled with indifference. They were the same as the Talisman Lord. In order to achieve their goals, they did not care whether this world was destroyed or not. This isn't the first time this world has been destroyed. There have been records of it happening 3 times. Every time it was destroyed, the world would be separated for a short period of time before coming back together. The scattered pieces of land at the edge would enter the endless sea of stars and become islands in the sea of stars. Kuang Xing suddenly spoke up after a moment of silence as he watched the ground split open and the mountains collapse. In fact, this statement was just to find a reason for them to free themselves from the shreds of conscience in their hearts. Yu Gui was the most straightforward. After Kuang Xing finished speaking, he smiled and said, "You missed out on one point. That is, every destruction is actually a rebirth. Every time the world changes, countless rare treasures will appear. When the ground finally closes, a map of the earth vein will appear." That's right. Jimmy also sighed. To ordinary humans who have yet to cultivate, this process of destruction and rebirth is the arrival of doomsday. But to us cultivators, it is a great opportunity. The reason why cultivators like us exist in this world is because of this process. After Jimmy finished speaking, Kuang Xing raised his left hand and opened his palm. In his palm, there was a blue object that looked like a peach pit. Looking at the object in his hand, Kuang Xing smiled. "We have finally done what our seniors failed to do. When the earth veins regenerate, with the 3 vein crystals in our hands, we will be able to obtain the complete map of the earth vein." The shattering of the land occurred from the inside to the outside. This was because the underground was the most solid. When there was a change here above the ground, it could be described as the sky had collapsed and the earth had caved in. Although Yang Tian did not know the situation above the ground, he knew that it would be too late if he did not act now. The seed of the world tree that had been lying quietly in Yang Tian's storage bracelet for God knows how many years was finally taken out by Yang Tian. Yang Tian held the seed in his hand and threw it toward the center of the crater without even looking at it. The real seed of the world tree had extremely strong vitality. As long as it was activated with mental power, its outer shell would shatter and begin to sprout and grow. Even in space, it could grow normally. The strange thing was that this tree also had intelligence and could actively create an environment suitable for other life forms to live in. Yang Tian had heard from Chu Yin and Gu Ying that the world tree was a gift from God to lower life forms. When Yang Tian held the seed of the world tree, he had already activated it with his mental power. Before it left Yang Tian's palm, a crack had already appeared on its outer shell, which was as hard as steel. In that instant, Yang Tian sensed an enormous vitality from the seed. Although it was only a trace, it made Yang Tian feel a sense of majesty. Even if thousands of powerhouses like Kuang Xing were added together, they would not be as strong as this trace of vitality. The broken seed of the world tree fell precisely into the blue tree stump in the crater. When the seed disappeared from his eyes, Yang Tian let out a long breath and felt somewhat uneasy. The growth of the world tree would definitely cause a huge commotion. What if it attracted Kuang Xing and the others? Would the young world tree be able to withstand the destruction of those people? Yang Tian's worry was very reasonable. After all, the world tree was very fragile. At least, that was what Yang Tian thought. Otherwise, the starfield known as the Music Boundary Starfield wouldn't have been destroyed by Tianhan. Thinking of the world tree and the Loot GS Starfield, Chu Yin and Gu Ying, with their orange curly hair, appeared in Yang Tian's mind. I wonder how she's doing now. Yang Tian looked at the tree stump in the crater and could not help muttering to himself. Hypoplanet. After Yang Tian left, Chu Yin and Gu Ying had already returned to this planet. There were no more exiled planets in this universe. Hypoplanet had reappeared on the star map after many years. The flow of time in this world was completely different from the world where Yang Tian had come from. Yang Tian had been in the new world for less than 10 years, but in this universe, more than 100 years had passed based on the time on Ketla planet. Although more than 100 years had passed, Chu Yin Gang did not look old at all. In fact, she looked even younger than before. As the great priest of the Superstar Divinity Temple, Chu Yin Gang was standing on observatory on the highest peak of Ipa planet. Looking at the stars in the sky, Chu Yin Gang's eyes were filled with confusion. How could it be so easy to leave this world? Several years after Yang Tian left, the passage opened by the previous goddess suddenly closed. According to great priest Tai Yu's analysis, this should be the work of the mysterious man in black. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to many experts who had reached the peak of cultivation. Disappointed, some top experts went into hiding, while others fought with each other. The originally peaceful universe was once again in chaos. What worried Chu Yangang was that Yang Tian's son, Yang Tian, had suddenly disappeared. It was said that he was being hunted down. Yang Tian had many enemies. Who could it be? While Chu Yangang's thoughts were in a mess, a Y-shaped mark on her chest suddenly lit up. Chu Yangang was overjoyed. This meant that the seed of the world tree had sprouted and grown. Chapter 756. In Yang Tian's eyes, the world tree quickly emerged from the blue tree stump. It looked no different from an ordinary tree, but its roots were extremely developed. Just as a part of the tree trunk grew out, the roots in the soil had already spread throughout the entire pit. The blue tree stump and tree roots in the pit were quickly entangled by the world tree's roots, and the energy contained within was absorbed by the world tree. The wider the roots covered, the more energy the world tree absorbed, and the faster it grew. It was growing at an almost exponential speed. In less than 5 minutes, the world tree had grown into a towering tree. The trunk's diameter was so large that 10 people would not be able to wrap their arms around it. The world tree grew bigger and bigger, and the life force it released became stronger and stronger. Soon, it pierced through space and spread into the distance. This made Yang Tian even more worried. The world tree's powerful roots kept spreading out, covering the entire continent faster than the speed of sound. This vast piece of land was originally about to break apart, but when the world tree's roots spread over, these roots were like nails, fixing the land that was about to break apart. As the roots contracted, the cracks were pulled back together. The entire continent, with the world tree as the center, slowly calmed down. What's going on? In the everlasting palace, the continent was about to split apart, and the ley lines that had not appeared for a long time were about to appear again. But suddenly, the tremors stopped, and the canyon-like cracks began to heal. Yugui could not help but cry out. At this moment, they naturally sensed a powerful life force. Kuang Xing frowned. It should be, someone is stopping the continent from splitting. They're about to succeed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go take a look. The impatient Yugui was about to move after he finished speaking. Wait. Seeing Yugui's anxious look, Kuang Xing immediately raised his hand to stop him. How are you going to go? Yugui was stunned. With his ability, it was not difficult to go to where Yang Tian was now. He just needed to use brute force to break through the spatial barrier. After all, it was just a spatial bubble created by the spatial energy turbulence, but he did not know how long it would take. If the delay was too long, it might be useless even if he went. Then what do we do? Yugui thought for a moment and asked with a frown. Kuang Xing thought for a moment. Let's work together. He knew that only Yang Tian could break through those spaces in a short time. Unfortunately, he could not tolerate Yang Tian. As for Black Talisman Lord, who had just joined, his attainments in the Tao of Runes were very high, but to break through the space in the ley line in a short period of time. Forget it. It would be faster to barge in. What was worth mentioning was that Black Talisman Lord was now a great manager of the limitless Divine Palace, and his status was only one level lower than that of Minister. Under Black Talisman Lord's arrangements, Shichen Yuyu and the others from the Eternal Temple had already entered the Everlasting Temple. The great manager had the power to recruit troops and buy horses. When these people entered the Limitless Temple, they did not attract much attention. Kuang Xing still didn't know that there was a malignant tumor hidden in his Everlasting Temple. If Cha Kuang had a good relationship with Yang Tian, he would definitely remind Cha Kuang. One had to know that these people were too powerful. They had almost destroyed the Superstar Divinity Temple in the past. Kuang Xing had a premonition that in the near future, Yang Tian would be his greatest enemy. However, he didn't know that his greatest enemy in the future had openly entered the temple, right under his nose. There was no need to discuss the matter of stopping the continent from healing, because if they did nothing now, their previous efforts would be wasted. Taking advantage of the fact that a crack in front of them had not closed, the three rushed in. This vast continent was very wondrous. If one were to look at it from a distance in the sea of stars, it would look like an island floating in the void, completely made of rocks. But in fact, there were many mysterious spaces inside it, as well as ley lines that maintained the vitality of the continent. Ley lines existed in the center of the continent, just like the meridians of the human body. Countless mysterious spaces existed in the ley lines. Ley lines absorbed energy from the sea of stars and stored it in the space inside it. When it was full, it would spit out energy, forming many kinds of energy crystals. The Laos crystal mine was formed indirectly by relying on ley lines. After the three entered the crack, they quickly entered a fiery red space. This place was filled with red flame crystals. In this space, the temperature was so high that even star crystals could be melted. Flame crystals were also a kind of energy crystal, but compared to Laos crystals, their quality was slightly inferior. Naturally, the three of them didn't care about the crystals and directly rushed through this space. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Quashing's body was like a sharp sword. As he quickly flew, he directly broke through the space wall, forming a temporary tunnel. After rushing into the tunnel, the three of them quickly appeared in a light blue space. This was a world with extremely low temperature. It was filled with hard blue ice crystals. If normal cultivators were to come here, they would be frozen into ice in an instant. Even if the three of them were top elites, the energy in their bodies could not help but become chaotic after suddenly rushing into this place from a place with extremely high temperature. Quashing gritted his teeth as he violently broke through the ice crystals in front of him, and then crashed into the space wall. The formation that the three of them were in was a triangle. Quashing was the tip of the triangle. As they quickly flew, Jimi and Yugue, who were behind Quashing, focused most of their energy in front of Quashing to provide some sort of protection for Jimi. In truth, before each charge, it was Jimi and Yugue who would use up the most energy. In less than 5 minutes, the three of them had broken through dozens of spaces and appeared not too far away from the Tree of World. At this time, the Tree of World was already half-grown. It was shaped like a giant banyan tree. Compared to it, humans were like dust. The Tree of World was already emitting a faint green halo. When they saw the giant tree, Quashing and the others immediately understood. While they still did not know what the tree was, they knew that it was because of the giant tree that the land that was split apart would be healed. After staying in the air for a moment, Quashing made his move. He raised his hand and blasted at the Tree of World. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Quashing's attack did not directly hit the Tree of World. Instead, it was blocked by the green halo that the Tree of World was emitting. Quashing's energy was too powerful. While it did not hurt the Tree of World, the green halo that the Tree of World emitted had become smaller, and the giant tree was shaking. When Yang Tian saw what was happening from afar, his heart was in his throat. By his estimation, the Tree of World that was not fully grown could only withstand 3 such attacks from Quashing. Of course, Quashing could see that as well. He smiled coldly and blasted at the Tree of World again. Boom! There was another loud explosion. But this time, Quashing's attack did not hit the Tree of World's green halo. Instead, it was a green energy that blocked the attack. The energy that was generated from the collision tore the space around them apart, creating a small area of spatial annihilation. From afar, the spatial annihilation looked like black bubbles that would disappear in a flash. The spatial annihilation was very terrifying. It could annihilate everything, but at the same time, it would also absorb the energy turbulence around it. Very quickly, the space calmed down. The power that Quashing used in this attack was even more powerful than the first one, but it had been blocked by someone. That was right. That green energy was unleashed by a human. Quashing looked at where the green energy came from and saw a beautiful young woman walking out from the green halo. Chu Yenguing. When he saw the beautiful woman, Yang Tian could not help but be stunned. Chapter 757. When he saw Chu Yin Gang, Yang Tian could not believe his eyes. If it wasn't for the familiar aura coming from Chu Yin Gang, Yang Tian would have thought that this was a woman who looked exactly like Chu Yin Gang. Compared to when Yang Tian left, Chu Yin Gang had become more mature. Her aura was also more reserved, as if she had lived for a long time. Yang Tian did not know that although he felt like he had only been here for a short period of time, it had been more than 100 years in his previous world. If he were to use the time on Earth to calculate, it would have been more than 200 years. When he saw Chu Yin Gang, Kuo-shing was confused. There were no more than 5 people in this world who were more powerful than him. This mysterious woman who had suddenly appeared was clearly not one of them. "Who are you?" Kuo-shing asked with a frown as he clenched his fists and stared into Chu Yin Gang's eyes. Chu Yin Gang had just arrived in this world and did not understand the language of this world. But when she saw the expression in Kuo-shing's eyes, she knew what he meant. What answered Kuo-shing was a sharp green light. Within the gravity of the continent, there was naturally air. With a whoosh, the green light rubbed against the air, creating a shrill sound as it passed through Kuo-shing's afterimage. Kuo-shing, who had dodged to the side, was furious. He waved his hand, and his body flashed in the air. He kept on changing his position as he approached Chu Yin Gang. The green light that Chu Yin Gang emitted must have something to do with the Tree of World. The energy that she controlled must have come from the Tree of World as well. Kuo-shing's battle with Chu Yin Gang was the same as fighting against the Tree of World. While the Tree of World had just been born, it had taken root in the entire continent. The energy that it obtained was something that Kuo-shing could not compare with. Kuo-shing was less than 1,000 meters away from Chu Yin Gang, but in the blink of an eye, he was less than 50 meters away from her. Seeing this, Yang Tian's heart skipped a beat. When he was standing next to Kuo-shing, he could not even think of fighting back. Kuo-shing was just too powerful. Bang! Just as Yang Tian was worried about Chu Yin Gang, there was a muffled sound. Kuo-shing's body that was moving at a fast speed suddenly stopped, and then he was repelled by a powerful force. Kuo-shing, who had finally managed to stop himself in the air, let out an angry roar. The powerful and incomparably arrogant Kuo-shing had never encountered such a situation. Seeing this, Yang Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Yang Tian finally noticed that Chu Yin Gang was still within the range of the World Tree's halo. After 3 exchanges, Kuo-shing had realized that Chu Yin Gang was not someone he could defeat. Of course, he also knew that Chu Yin Gang had used the energy of the World Tree. As long as Chu Yin Gang left the World Tree, he might be able to kill her with a single finger. With a furious roar, Kuo-shing vented the frustration in his heart. He suddenly turned his head and looked at Yang Tian. Kuo-shing had noticed Yang Tian the moment he arrived, but he was in a hurry to destroy the World Tree. He didn't want to deal with Yang Tian for the time being. Xiaolongo, seeing that Kuo-shing, Ji-mi, and Yu Guwei had started to pay attention to him, Yang Tian knew that if he didn't protect himself, he would be dead for sure. As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon swung its tail and rushed toward the World Tree. Seeing Yang Tian move, Yu Guwei moved almost at the same time. His body turned into a ray of white light and rushed toward Yang Tian. The little blue dragon's speed was much slower than Yu Guwei's. Under normal circumstances, Yu Guwei would have blocked its path as soon as it entered the range of the World Tree's protection. Yang Tian had already expected this. It was useless to play tricks with experts at Yu Guwei's level within a range of several hundred meters. Even if you used teleportation, they could instantly grab you out of the spatial tunnel. But at the moment, Yang Tian was at least thousands of meters away from the 3 of them. Before Yu Guwei could intercept the little blue dragon suddenly disappeared with Yang Tian on its back. When it reappeared, it was already near the halo of the World Tree. Yu Guwei had thought that Yang Tian would be bounced back after hitting the invisible energy like Kuo-shing unexpectedly. The little blue dragon rushed directly into the dense leaves of the World Tree and disappeared. Now, the 3 of them didn't need to guess to know that the mysterious woman who had suddenly appeared must have something to do with Yang Tian. What do we do now? Yu Gui asked Kuang Xing with a frown. Kuang Xing looked at Chu Yin Guing and the huge world tree that was still growing behind her. He said calmly, "We'll split up and attack from different directions. Let's see if we can break through the defense of the giant tree and rush inside. If not, we'll attack together." Jimmy and Yu Gui nodded immediately after Kuang Xing finished speaking. This was their only option now. In the short time that the three of them had arrived, the land that existed in the void had completely calmed down. After the three of them had made a plan, they turned into three streaks of light. In a few breaths, they appeared in different directions and rushed toward the world tree. At this time, Chu Yin Guing ignored the three of them and came to Yang Tian. At this time, Yang Tian was squatting on one of the huge branches of the world tree. The little blue dragon, who had turned back into a mini dragon, was holding a tender leaf of the world tree and eating it with relish. The little blue dragon had a deep impression of the taste of this leaf. When it was taught a lesson by Grandfather Hong on the Purple Planet, Grandfather Hong gave it this leaf to eat. The world tree was very big, but its leaves were only a little bigger than ordinary trees. Its surface was smooth as if it was made of green jade. Yang Tian had copied the little blue dragon and picked a leaf and put it in his mouth. As for the taste, it was too bitter. It was 10 times more bitter than the Chinese medicine he drank when he was young. Perhaps only the yellow lotus could be compared to it. Yang Tian frowned and wiped his mouth. Then, he saw Chu Yin Guing appear in front of him. Judging from the energy waves emitted by Chu Yin Guing, her cultivation was at the great star god realm. In the previous universe, she was a top existence. However, after coming to this world, she was nothing. This was the same as Yang Tian's guess. Chu Yin Guing could block Kuo because she used the energy of the world tree. The source of cultivation for Chu Yin Guiying's clan was the world tree. It was not strange that she could use the energy of the world tree. What made Yang Tian curious was how Chu Yin Guing came here. In Chu Yin Guiying's eyes, Yang Tian's appearance had become younger. He was no different from the previous Yang Tian. She did not know that Yang Tian had not been here for long. Standing in front of Yang Tian, Chu Yin Guing looked at Yang Tian silently. Boom! 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 Outside, the sound of intense energy colliding could be heard. The power of the three temple masters was very strong. Every time they collided, the energy of the world tree would fluctuate. Yang Tian, who was squatting on the tree, could feel it clearly. Is it okay for them to do this? Yang Tian looked at Chu Yin Guing, who had matured a lot. He broke the silence between them and asked with a smile. Chu Yin Guing raised her right hand and stroked a lock of hair. She sat beside Yang Tian naturally and looked outside. She smiled and said, "It's okay. Everything is under my control. They can't break in. I am invincible in the area covered by the world tree. Moreover, the energy of the world tree is still increasing." Chu Yin Guing was very confident. Yang Tian nodded in agreement. Without worrying about the outside, Yang Tian could finally ask Chu Yin Guing some questions. How is my son and his mother? This was the question Yang Tian wanted to know the most. Chu Yin Guing said, "Before I came here, I just received news that Yang Tian was missing. According to the people of the Azure Dragon clan, he went to Earth. His mother, Yang Nancy, also went there with all the people of the Jade Sun clan. It will probably be chaotic for a while. It will be fine." Qi Guanghao promised. Chapter 758. My parents, are they okay? There's also Sua Air, 7 Light Rain, 7 Colors, Great Priest Tai Yu. Yang Tian asked after Chu Yin Guing finished speaking. These people were all Yang Tian cared about. If he could go back, Yang Tian would definitely go back often to visit his parents, chat with his friends, eat, drink, and have fun. This was the life Yang Tian had hoped for. However, ever since he started cultivating, he had less and less time for it. This was because the path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If he didn't work hard, he would be overtaken by his enemies and left behind by his peers. Why don't you ask me if I'm doing well? Chu Yin Guing said coquettishly after Yang Tian finished speaking. The more mature, Chu Yin Gu Ying's resentful look was more lethal than before. Yang Tian naturally reached out and hugged Chu Yin Gu Ying's waist, pulling her over to lean on his shoulder. He smiled and said, "Since you're already in front of me, I'm not worried anymore." Chu Yin Gu Ying smiled happily and said, "They're doing well, especially your parents." Chu Yin Gu Ying wanted to say something but stopped. "What's wrong?" Yang Tian frowned and asked. If Chu Yin Gu Ying hadn't finished speaking, he would have thought that something had happened to his parents. Chu Yin Gu Ying whispered a few words in Yang Tian's ear. Yang Tian chuckled when he heard it. It turned out that Yang Tian's parents had given birth to many younger brothers and sisters for Yang Tian. The current Yang clan had truly become a big clan. One had to know that more than 100 years had passed on Earth. Most of Yang Tian's younger brothers and sisters had already grown up. Yang Tian's parents had now become the ancestors of the Yang clan. Their descendants had spread out, and there were at least tens of thousands of people who were related by blood. With so many people, there were also many things to do in the clan. When Yang Tian heard that some people from the Yang clan wanted to take over the Azure Dragon clan, he couldn't help but feel angry. If he could go back, Yang Tian would definitely set off immediately to reorganize the family. While chatting with Chu Yin and Gu Ying, Yang Tian lost track of time. Then, he suddenly realized that an entire day had passed. Furthermore, unknowingly, Kuang Xing, Jimi, and Yu Gui had all left. "How did you get here?" Yang Tian had wanted to ask this question at first, but he forgot about it when they talked about his family. Chu Yin Guiying said, "When I obtained the World Tree seed, I established a connection with it. Wherever the World Tree goes, I can appear there." Yang Tian finally understood that Chu Yin Guiying's relationship with the Tree of World was similar to his relationship with the little blue dragon. He didn't expect that not only could humans establish a mysterious blood contract with exotic beasts, they could also establish a blood contract with plants. "Can you still go back?" Yang Tian asked again. Chu Yin Guiying shook her head. "I can't. Although I can control the power of the World Tree, I'm restricted at the same time. I can't go too far from the World Tree. Otherwise, it will lose its defensive ability. If I leave the World Tree now and go outside, I probably won't be able to survive." Through the World Tree, Chu Yin Guiying naturally understood that the space in this world was much more cohesive than the previous world. It could also be said that compared to the previous world, this was a world with a higher density of matter. Yang Tian nodded. "Then you can stay here for the time being. Anyway, the outside world is very chaotic. Compared to the previous world, this world is too monotonous." Monotonous? This was Yang Tian's intuition about this world. In this world, most people were cultivators. In terms of the creation of spiritual civilization, Yang Tian felt that compared to the small tribes in the previous universe, this world was too lacking. If someone was born and raised in this world, they wouldn't feel anything at all. However, people like Yang Tian who came from another world would inevitably feel bored after staying here for a long time. If it weren't for the fact that cultivation took up most of his time, Yang Tian would definitely show the people in this world what real life was like. After Yang Tian finished speaking, he looked at Chu Yin Guiying's pretty face, which was close to his, and added with a smile, "I'm being chased now, so I have to hide here for a while." "That's great." Before Yang Tian finished speaking, Chu Yin Guiying cried out in surprise and excitedly hugged Yang Tian's neck. Yang Tian also felt very happy at this moment because there was finally someone who could listen to him. As for people like Black Talisman Lord, although they were from the same world, Yang Tian didn't dare to tell him anything because Black Talisman Lord wasn't trustworthy. Yang Tian had originally planned to find a secret place to start cultivating. The appearance of the World Tree and Chu Yin Guiying had created the best environment for him. The little blue dragon chewed on a few leaves and sensibly distanced itself from Yang Tian and Chu Yin Guiying. This was because it knew that something would happen between a man and a woman who had an ambiguous relationship. It didn't want to be a third wheel. The World Tree grew at the bottom of the continent. If one looked at it from the front of the continent, it would look like it was growing upside down. However, under the gravity of the continent, it was no different from being on the front. Here, The sky never changed, and one couldn't feel the passage of time. After about a few days, Yang Tian woke up from the gentle land. During this period, Chu Yin Gang showed Yang Tian the magic of using mental power. With more than 100 years of cultivation experience and the power of the world tree, it could be said that she was a godlike existence in the area covered by the world tree. Here, Chu Yin Gang only needed to wave her hand, and some leaves of the world tree would be separated from the tree and disintegrate into elementary particles in the air, forming the items that Chu Yin Gang wanted. This was how an exquisite palace was formed in Chu Yin Gang's hands. The world tree grew bigger and bigger, and a huge branch had a vast area. Not only could Chu Yin Gang build a house on it, but she could also dig a pond and plant the plant seeds that she brought from Ipa. If the light wasn't bright enough, Chu Yin Gang could make some leaves glow and heat, forming a bright and warm place within a certain range. Apart from that, Chu Yin Gang could also turn the leaves of the world tree into all kinds of delicious food. These things were delicious and full of energy. If cultivators ate them often, they could help with their cultivation. After seeing Chu Yin Gang's tricks, Yang Tian finally understood why the star zone, where the world tree grew, was called the Music Realm Star Zone. What Chu Yin Gang said above was just a small trick that she used to make use of the world tree. This was because the world tree could not only strengthen the mental power of those who lived on it, but it could also communicate with faraway places through the world tree. Yang Tian saw how Chu Yin Gang used the world tree to communicate with a cultivator on Ipa who had established a connection with an ancient tree. Chapter 759. Because the other party's energy was too weak, the communication process was very short, and the amount of information transmitted was not much. The other party only knew that Chu Yin Gang, who had suddenly disappeared, was not kidnapped by a mysterious person like in the legends. Chu Yin Gang said to Yang Tian, "If the cultivator who communicates with her is twice as strong, they can communicate with her like a virtual image. Unfortunately, there are too few ancient trees on Ipa that could be used to establish a spiritual connection with cultivators. Moreover, this method of cultivation became more and more useless with the disappearance of the world tree. Otherwise, Yang Tian would be able to know what was happening in the other world, and even remotely control it. When Chu Yin Gang once again established a short connection with a female cultivator on Ipa through the ancient tree, Yang Tian asked curiously, "Can I try?" Unexpectedly, Chu Yin Gang shook her head. "I'm afraid not, because the one communicating with me is my disciple, and she is receiving my spiritual power inheritance. If you're on the other side, the communication between us will be smoother. If you can't do it, then forget it." Yang Tian shook his head helplessly. However, Chu Yin Gang smiled at Yang Tian and said, "Although you can't communicate with my disciple, you could try to use the world tree to communicate with cultivators from other worlds. It's like sending a message to a planet and letting all the planets within the range of the signal receive it. This method will give you a very special feeling. It will be very beneficial for your spiritual power usage." "Okay, then tell me how to do it," Yang Tian said excitedly. "It's not difficult for you to do it because your spiritual power world is very broad, and the world tree was activated by your spiritual power to sprout and grow, so the world tree has a high degree of approval for you." Chu Yin Gang sat beside Yang Tian and explained in detail to Yang Tian. Yang Tian had already fulfilled the most important conditions. What was left was to use his spiritual power skillfully. Yang Tian closed his eyes under the curious gaze of the little blue dragon. The first step was to release his mental power and communicate with the world tree. On Earth, according to the ancient legends of the Eastern humans, everything had a spirit. The longer it existed, the more spiritual it would become. In other words, it would become a spirit. The world tree also had spirituality and was quite intelligent. When Yang Tian was communicating with the Tree of World, he felt a very strange way of communication that he had not experienced in a long time. This kind of method was hard to describe with words. According to Yang Tian's understanding, it was the use of the most mysterious sixth sense. The sixth sense was an innate ability of humans. It gave humans the ability to predict the future. Compared to ordinary humans, cultivators naturally had sharper sixth sense. For example, in battle, sometimes when the opponent had just launched an attack, the energy emitted by the attack had not yet been captured by the five senses. However, the sixth sense would warn them in advance. Those who had experienced battles, especially battles of life and death, would have a deeper understanding of this feeling. After communicating with the Tree of World, Yang Tian's consciousness began to wander through the endless space. Countless information that Yang Tian did not understand appeared in Yang Tian's mind. At first, Yang Tian felt a little uncomfortable because the information was very difficult to understand. Don't think about it. Just treat yourself as a bystander. Seeing Yang Tian frown and look very uncomfortable, Chu Yin Guing, who had experience in this field, naturally understood why Yang Tian felt uncomfortable. Therefore, she reminded Yang Tian. Yang Tian nodded and did as Chu Yin Guing said. Indeed, he felt much better. At this time, Yang Tian was already watching with an appreciative attitude. Finally, he had a strange feeling. At this time, Yang Tian finally understood why those cultivators with profound cultivation always cultivated in seclusion. It turned out that they used a special method to abandon their five senses and use their sixth sense to perceive the world. Although they did not understand most of the things they perceived, this process was very strange. It was very strange and could not be described with words. Of course, those who had experienced this kind of meditation many times would summarize some experience and understand some mysterious information. After sensing for a while, Yang Tian suddenly stopped. When he opened his eyes, he found that Chu Yin Guing and the little blue dragon were no longer by his side. Therefore, he asked the strange program to report the time. Only then did he know that a full 5 days had passed. 5 days using the Ketla planet's time. Ordinary people would not be able to endure this. 5 days without eating or drinking, coupled with excessive brain power, would cause harm to the body. However, for a powerful cultivator like Yang Tian, this kind of meditation was similar to receiving countless information through the Tree of World. The damage to the body was negligible. If it was cultivation, Yang Tian could easily do it by using his own body as the foundation of the microscopic aspect. However, it was impossible for him to abandon the Tree of World and reach the same level of meditation as before. This was because the World Tree's function was like an enormous signal transmitting and receiving device. With Yang Tian's mental power at the moment, not only was it difficult, but it was also impossible. During the meditation, just now, although Yang Tian was only a bystander, during this process he suddenly felt an indescribable touch to his soul. After quietly recalling his previous experience, Yang Tian frowned and closed his eyes again. This time, Yang Tian meditated for a longer time. The land Yang Tian was on was just a drop in the ocean in the vast sea of stars. In such a big world, how many signals could the Tree of World receive? It must be uncountable. Yang Tian wanted to search for that piece of information that touched his heart and soul amidst this sea of information. In the world of the tomb of the gods. Ever since Qin Fei awakened a part of her power and could heal injured warriors, her position in the clan was irreplaceable. Qin Fei no longer had to do the job of catching bugs before. She was treated like a treasure by the Protoss. It was only her turn to treat a warrior who returned with serious injuries. If it was a minor injury, as long as it was not fatal, the Protoss warriors could recover quickly with their strong physiques. Because of Qin Fei's existence, the number of warriors dispatched in the clan was several times more than before, and the number of undead in the surroundings decreased a lot. This way, the warriors in the clan had more time to cultivate and improve their combat strength. After being busy for a while, Qin Fei began to study the big tree that was full of vitality in the clan's land. This tree was somewhat similar to the Tree of World she had heard of before, but it was much smaller. Qin Fei thought that this was probably because this tree was restrained by the power of death outside. It was already amazing that it could persist in such an environment and provide for a group of clansmen. While studying the giant tree, Qin Fei unintentionally established a connection with it. Through the giant tree, she was able to sense a wonderful message. Since this discovery, Qin Fei was no longer as depressed and bored as before. What Yang Tian and Qin Fei didn't expect was that during this period of time, they were actually doing the same thing. Moreover, they quickly connected. Both of them had a strange feeling in their hearts. However, this kind of communication was only for a moment, and neither of them discovered the other's existence. What Yang Tian did not expect was that he could actually communicate with the domain of the gods through the Tree of World. Moreover, after he and Qin Fei felt an inexplicable touch to their hearts, they both chose to immediately search. Chapter 760. Black Star and Shi Wei walked past the giant tree with wounds all over their bodies as they returned from hunting the undead. They had been gone for a long time. It had been more than 10 days in Ketla Star. After such a long time, Qin Fei was still sitting cross-legged under the tree, just like when they left. That was to say, Qin Fei had been sitting here while they were gone. What is Lady Doctor doing? She has been sitting under the giant tree for a long time. Shi Wei frowned and said. He was naturally worried about Qin Fei. During this time, Shi Wei had been saved by Qin Fei once, and his injuries were even worse than Black Star's. His teammates did not dare to move him at all. In the end, it was his teammates who informed Qin Fei. Qin Fei immediately rushed over and saved Shi Wei. Now, every warrior respected Qin Fei from the bottom of their hearts. Black Star smiled and patted Shi Wei's shoulder. Don't worry, I know that Lady Doctor is communicating with the giant tree. She did it. Shi Wei was very surprised when he heard this. This giant tree was not planted here by their ancestors. It had been here since the beginning. Such a special tree must have a spirit. Later on, the people wanted to communicate with the giant tree, but none of them succeeded. Therefore, when he heard that Qin Fei was communicating with the giant tree, Shi Wei was very surprised. Black Star whispered, Lady Doctor is different from ordinary people. She succeeded, but we can't tell anyone about this for now. Shi Wei immediately nodded. He knew that if this news was known by others, Qin Fei would be in trouble. It was not that anyone would harm Qin Fei because of this. It was just that the older generation hoped to use the giant tree's energy to open the entrance to this space and return to the divine dominion. The two of them stood in the distance and looked at Qin Fei silently. Whoosh! Suddenly, a pair of pure white wings unfolded behind Qin Fei, bringing along a gust of wind. At the same time, an excited expression appeared on Qin Fei's face. At this time, a spirit worm fell from the tree and was about to land on Qin Fei's head. Whoosh! Pung! Another gust of wind sounded, and then there was a collision sound. It turned out that Black Star's son, Qi Yuan, had rushed over in time. He flew over Qin Fei's head, caught the worm, and then crashed into the tree trunk. Seeing this, He Yuan and Shi Wei couldn't help but laugh. Ever since Qin Fei saved Black Star, Qi Yuan, who did not have the qualifications to go out and fight, became Qin Fei's small guard. In this place where her clansmen gathered, why would Qin Fei need guards? Black Star understood his son's thoughts, but he was not optimistic. This was because Qin Fei had already told him that she was waiting for a man named Yang Tian. Qin Fei also said that if they wanted to leave this place, they would need Yang Tian's help. Black Star did not really believe this. This was because Yang Tian wasn't even a god. In the eyes of the gods, anyone without a godhead was weak. No one would believe that a weakling would help a powerhouse. Qi Yuan rubbed his forehead and crawled up from the ground. Then, he directly stuffed the loathsome spirit worm into his mouth. Who asked this insect to offend the goddess in his heart? He had to eat it raw to vent his anger. Black Star and Shi Wei smiled, and soon noticed the expression on Qin Fei's face. The two of them looked at each other and slowly walked toward Qin Fei. They stopped more than 10 meters away from her. Seeing that Black Star and Shi Wei's faces suddenly became serious, and the aura on Qin Fei's body became more and more chaotic, the clansmen around them all gathered around at the same time. Everyone was afraid that something would happen to this female doctor. What they didn't know was that the reason why Qin Fei was so excited and even caused her aura to become chaotic was because she felt Yang Tian's aura. At this time, Yang Tian was in the same situation as Qin Fei. Yang Tian spent a lot of time in his second meditation and finally found the trace of information that made his mind fluctuate. As soon as he found this information, Yang Tian immediately grabbed it. At the same time, the World Tree took the initiative to cooperate with Yang Tian and began to search for the source of this aura. First, the tree spirits of the two trees established a connection. Although the World Tree and the giant tree in the tomb of the goddess Sin were not the same species, they were of the same origin. Both trees were equally powerful. Once the connection was established, the amount of information transmitted to each other suddenly increased countless times. This was like the information transmission before was a trickle, but now it was a river. Trees could not move. Trees with spirits relied on this method to communicate with each other, and once they were connected, they would be connected forever. During this process, Yang Tian and Qin Fei were both excited and helpless. The consciousness they transmitted was completely overwhelmed by the amount of information transmitted by the two giant trees, but sometimes they would come into contact. As time passed, the two of them became anxious. Fortunately, the two trees finally remembered that they needed to take care of the two little guys after communicating with each other. Therefore, Yang Tian's and Qin Fei's consciousnesses soon came into contact. The connection between Yang Tian and Qin Fei was undoubtedly countless times clearer than the connection between Chu Yin and Gu Ying and her disciple. The connection between two people's consciousnesses was clearer and more intuitive than a conversation. Yang Tian told Qin Fei about his experience after she left. Qin Fei also told Yang Tian that she was now in a very safe place and was living a very peaceful life. Qin Fei did not tell Yang Tian about her experience in the domain of the gods because it would make Yang Tian angry. Of course, Yang Tian also did not tell Qin Fei that after he came to this world, he had encountered several life and death crises. This communication did not last long before it was suddenly cut off. Because Qin Fei could not hold on any longer, Yang Tian sensed it and took the initiative to cut off the connection. Although Qin Fei had a godhead, she did not have a strong mental power, and this kind of connection required a lot of mental power. What happened just now? Chu Yin and Gu Ying could not help but ask when they saw Yang Tian opening his eyes with a happy expression on his face. "I found Xiao Fei," Yang Tian said. There was no need to hide this from Chu Yin Gu Ying. Chu Yin Gu Ying's face did not show any unpleasant expression. "That's great. How is the goddess now? What is the domain of the gods like? Is it a place of bliss?" Chu Yin Gu Ying asked several questions in a row. Yang Tian could not answer these questions because he did not know. Although Qin Fei said that she was fine, Yang Tian, who knew Qin Fei very well, could faintly feel that Qin Fei was trapped somewhere. Fortunately, she should be fine for the time being. After this contact, it would probably be some time before they would meet. Yang Tian also collected his thoughts and began to organize his current realm and the energy he had obtained. This kind of organization was very necessary. In order to defeat an expert like Kuang Xing, Yang Tian had to cultivate to the soul travel realm at the very least. He and Kuang Xing were already mortal enemies. Yang Tian had never worried about the increase of his realm. Chapter 761. He didn't know where Qin Fei was or how she was doing. Yang Tian's heart had always felt like there was a rock pressing down on it. Now that he had news of Qin Fei, the rock in Yang Tian's heart was finally removed. He suddenly felt that his state of mind was much clearer than before. Yang Tian, who had calmed down, looked at the dim sea of stars in the distance through the lush leaves of the Tree of World. In his mind, the process of when he first arrived in this world and then walked all the way to the present appeared. If this process was described in 2 words, Yang Tian would definitely use the word depressed. Before, whether it was on Earth or after leaving Earth to go to the wider universe, he was always decisive. In most cases, he took the initiative. On Earth, his goal was to become a level 9 warrior. After leaving Earth, he first joined the Superstar Academy, then entered the Superstar Temple. All of these processes were planned and taken the initiative. After coming to this world, it was a completely passive process. This had a negative impact on Yang Tian's state of mind. The foundation of Yang Tian's cultivation was to follow his heart. If his heart was not in line, his cultivation would of course not go smoothly. Although he had raised his realm to the Destiny realm in a short period of time, and there were very few people in this vast world who could compare with him, Yang Tian was still not satisfied. Because he had the little blue dragon and the strange program, it was too stupid to make the cultivation process so uncomfortable. Of course, this was mainly because Yang Tian did not understand this world. Yang Tian let out a long breath, and the stagnant feeling that had been in his heart for a long time was finally completely expelled from his body. Broadstar, the 3 temples. Just you wait. Yang Tian muttered to himself and slowly closed his eyes. Since Yang Tian grew up until now, his enemies had never had a good ending. Not far away, the little blue dragon felt the change in Yang Tian's mentality, and its eyes flashed. It seemed to see the hot-blooded days of the past coming back. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Because there was no country or ruling body, it was even more vivid. Limitless Temple. Without any outsiders, Shi-Chun sat quietly on the main seat in the Black Talisman Lord's Hall. Below her were the experts who had come to this world with her. After Shi-Chun Yu came to this world, she still had extraordinary means. For example, her cultivation level had already risen to the Fate Comprehension realm. One had to know that before joining the Limitless Temple, Shi-Chun Yu was still at the peak of the Illusion realm. How long had it been since she had broken through? For Shi-Chun Yu to be able to convince people, benefits were a part of it. Another part was that she was mysterious enough and her methods were powerful. Speaking of which, after coming to this world, Yang Tian's days were not as comfortable as Shi-Chun and Yu. The Limitless Temple floated in the air like a floating city. Although he was only a head steward, he owned a large palace. Black Talisman Lord had already set up a talisman array, isolating the inside from the outside. No energy could be transmitted out, let alone sound. Even if Palace Master Kuo-Shing came in person, without breaking through the seal array, he wouldn't know the contents of the conversation. Moreover, Kuo-Shing wasn't that free. Since returning, Kuo-Shing stayed in the temple for a short period of time before leaving immediately. There were hundreds of priests who left with Kuo-Shing. Now, the number of priests in the huge palace of the Limitless Temple was less than 100. It was because of this that there was this secret meeting. Shi-Chun Yu glanced at the hundreds of cultivators who came with her in the temple with a cold gaze. After a moment of silence, she said indifferently, "Everyone has never understood why I came to the Limitless Temple, right? Now I can tell you." When everyone heard this, they immediately perked up. This was what many people didn't understand, because joining the temple didn't give them any practical benefits. Instead, they didn't have the freedom they had before. For example, when going out to hunt exotic beasts, they had to hand over a portion of the life crystals they obtained. The only benefit they received was the temple's protection. Protection? For these arrogant experts in the temple, they didn't need protection. Moreover, this protection was only in name for small fries like them. If a temple priest was killed, the temple would take revenge. For example, Yang Tian had now become the Limitless Temple's #1 enemy. However, if a head priest was killed by Yang Tian, they would probably pay a price, such as a large number of life crystals or cultivation resources such as pills, and the matter could be resolved. If a head priest was killed outside, the temple would of course investigate, but most of the time, it would be delayed indefinitely and nothing would be done. Therefore, the disciples below the head priest of the 3 temples would go out in teams, except for the missions given by the temple that must be completed. Although the divine temple was powerful, it had many enemies. Carefully analyzing it, after Shi-Chun and Yu joined the divine temple, except for the position of great master, there were no practical benefits. Everyone might have guessed the purpose of the goddess sneaking into the limitless temple, but since she didn't say it, they could only guess. Now, she was finally going to say it. Looking at everyone's expectant eyes, Shi-chan said faintly, "We came to the limitless temple to get something." After Shi-chan finished speaking, the corners of her mouth curled up, and a mysterious smile appeared on her face. Even Black Talisman Lord didn't know about this. The mission he received before was to enter the limitless temple by any means necessary. As for the rest, Shi-chun Yu didn't explain it to him at all. This was also a method of Shi-chun Yu superiors. If her subordinates knew everything, her position as a leader would come to an end. After a pause, Shi-chun Yu said faintly, "The three temples have existed for countless years. In ancient times, the three temples obtained a complete god's corpse." God's corpse? How could it be a corpse again? As soon as Shi-chun Yu's voice fell, most of the people present were very surprised, and some could not help but laugh. To say something disrespectful to Shi-chun Yu. In the original universe world, Shi-chun Yu relied on the corpse of Halua Yangli to establish the Temple of Eternal Life. In the end, she achieved her goal of leaving that universe. And now, it was another corpse, God, whether for ordinary humans or this group of cultivators, was a mysterious and powerful creature. But gods were always far away from mortals and only existed in legends. Not to mention the corpse of a god, they had never even seen the things left behind by a god. Shi-chun Yu naturally understood what everyone was thinking and couldn't help but laugh at this time. Originally, this corpse was complete, but later, the people of the three temples fought with each other. The limitless temple obtained the internal organs of the god. The starry sky temple obtained the limbs of the god, and the other parts are in the sky domain temple. What we want is the brain of the god, which is now in the limitless temple. May I ask, Lady Goddess, what benefits do we get from obtaining the brain of the god? The straightforward Gao Yuan got up from his seat at this time and asked loudly. Gao Yuan's voice was very loud and echoed in the temple. Shi-chun Yu smiled and said, "Good question. The body of the god is just a dead thing. The energy in the cells has been almost absorbed by the temple master. Think about it. Why is it that only the temple master in this world has cultivated to the immortal travel realm? It's because they absorbed the energy in the god's corpse. In fact, the most precious thing in the god's corpse was not the huge amount of energy, but the information in his brain. Every temple master of the divine hall naturally understood this principle. That was why the brain was preserved in its entirety. However, after countless years, dozens of temple masters were unable to obtain information from the god's corpse's brain. They knew that it was a treasure, but they couldn't open it no matter what. After a long time, they were naturally disappointed. Now is our best chance. If we wait any longer, I reckon that Guangxing won't even let this brain go and absorb its energy. Does Lady Goddess have a way? Gao Yuan asked again. Shi-chun Yu stood up from his seat and shook his head. I have no way. Before everyone's faces showed a disappointed expression, Shi-chun Yu continued. But there is one person who has a way. Who? Gao Yuan asked. Shi-chun Yu looked out of the temple and narrowed his eyes slightly. It's Yang Tian. Chapter 762. What Yang Tian didn't expect was that Shi-chun Yu, who had used him once before, would think of him again this time. Of course, Yang Tian had to admit that although he had been schemed against by Shi-chun Yu last time, he had also obtained great benefits. It could be said that it was a win-win situation. Would it be the same this time? Now, Yang Tian, who had no idea, was concentrating on tidying up his cultivation. With the protection of the world tree, Yang Tian had a rare period of carefree days with a beauty accompanying him. The little blue dragon treated the world tree as food and ate large amounts of its leaves every day. In the beginning, the little blue dragon didn't care about what it ate and could eat any leaf. But after a few days, this guy learned to be smart and look for the biggest, thickest, and smoothest leaves. After looking at them, even if it didn't eat them immediately, it would store them in the space in its body for future consumption. The world tree was very big. Although the little blue dragon was constantly picking leaves, the intelligent world tree didn't express any dissatisfaction to Chu Yin and Guing. This was because the world tree was too big. Even if the little blue dragon picked hundreds or thousands of times more leaves every day, it wouldn't affect the growth of the world tree. The world tree absorbed energy from the vast land and the sea of stars every day. Even if thousands of the little blue dragon ate leaves like this, it would still be able to persist. Ever since Yang Tian's realm had advanced to the destiny realm, the energy world in his body had become more and more like a real universe. In Yang Tian's opinion, perhaps he was only one step away. Last time, the Beast King that looked like a black cat accidentally entered Yang Tian's energy world and absorbed Yang Tian's energy. This indirectly allowed Yang Tian to understand some of the mysteries of life. After a period of meditation and comprehension, the originally lifeless azure dragons, formed from the power of the Dragon Balls in Yang Tian's energy world, seemed much more lively than before after incorporating Yang Tian's understanding of life. This was only the initial stage of the Destiny Comprehension realm. If he took another step forward, Yang Tian would be able to use the power of the Dragon Ball or other types of energy to create even more types of life forms in this world that was similar to the universe. This was the middle stage of the Destiny Comprehension realm. Reaching the late stages of the Destiny Comprehension realm, Yang Tian thought for a while and felt that he should create a complete ecosystem. Before he reached the Destiny Comprehension realm, Yang Tian's understanding of the Destiny Comprehension realm was still very shallow. He mistakenly thought that the energy world of a Destiny Comprehension realm cultivator was no different from the real universe. Only now did he realize how difficult it was to create a living being. Even gods would find it difficult to do so. After advancing to the Destiny Comprehension realm, Yang Tian's origin realm became even wider. The black hole in the middle was also twice as big as before. After sorting out the power of the Dragon Balls, Yang Tian shifted all his attention to the black hole. To Yang Tian, the black hole was extremely special. Compared to the black holes in the real world, it was clearly different. In the real world, those black holes devoured everything, not even light. However, the black hole in Yang Tian's energy world was selective when it devoured energy. Moreover, it was under the control of Yang Tian's thoughts. Not only could it absorb energy, it could also spit out the absorbed energy. Not only that, Yang Tian could also control the speed at which it absorbed energy. When Yang Tian attached his thoughts to the black hole immediately slowed down its rotation speed according to Yang Tian's thoughts. Then, with a thought from Yang Tian, the black hole's rotation speed suddenly increased by more than 100 times. This sudden increase in speed did not slow down at all. The appearance of the black hole was completely out of Yang Tian's expectations. It was an accident that occurred during the cultivation process. This kind of accident could not be replicated. Therefore, after Yang Tian asked Huey Meow Meow, the answer he received was that there had never been any related records in the history of cultivation in this world. In other words, Yang Tian did not have the experience of his predecessors. To make good use of this black hole, he had to explore it himself. This process might be very smooth and allow Yang Tian's combat strength to increase greatly. It was also possible that Yang Tian would destroy himself because of it. If one tried to cultivate step by step, they would only fade into the crowd. Those genius cultivators all had one thing in common, which was that their minds were extremely active and their imaginations were extremely rich. Of course, there was another more important point, which was that they were bold, plus some luck. These were the reasons why so many geniuses were born. In the origin realm, Yang Tian was constantly experimenting. If the black hole was a dough, he would have definitely molded it into countless shapes. In the process of controlling the black hole, Yang Tian first discovered that there was a limit to the rotation speed of the black hole. No matter how strong his will was, Yang Tian could not stop the black hole from rotating, nor could he increase the rotation speed of the black hole without limit. During this process, Yang Tian discovered that when the rotation speed of the black hole slowed down, the speed at which it absorbed energy would also slow down and decrease. The faster it sped up, the faster and more energy it absorbed and broke down. It was like an engine that burned oil. Yang Tian carefully recalled the situation when he used the black hole. At the same time, he compared it to the energy of the withered barbarian's attack. After some calculations, Yang Tian estimated that if the black hole had spun 10,000 times faster, it would have been able to completely absorb the energy of the withered barbarian's attack and turn it into its own energy. 10,000 times. What Yang Tian could do now was increase the speed of the black hole by about 4,000 times. If it sped up any faster, not only would the energy consumed by the black hole be unbearable, but the energy consumed by the black hole during this experiment was equivalent to absorbing the energy of a fist-sized, colorful crystal. Since one is not enough, if I increase the number, Yang Tian rubbed his chin and pondered. During this time, Yang Tian spent most of his time sitting cross-legged on a branch at the top of the world tree. From there, he could see farther and closer to the sea of stars. Chu Yangang often came to see Yang Tian. Every time she saw Yang Tian thinking, she felt that Yang Tian was especially charming. Chu Yangang knew that Yang Tian could not be disturbed at this time. However, something big had suddenly happened outside. She had to tell Yang Tian. Chu Yangang was about to speak when she saw Yang Tian close his eyes. After a moment of hesitation, she turned and left. Yang Tian did not know what was happening outside. At this time, all of his consciousness had descended into the original realm. Yang Tian wanted to increase the number of black holes from 1 to 2, 3, 4, until the limit of his control. If he succeeded, his combat power would be dozens of times stronger than it was now. Before separating the black holes, Yang Tian had done some calculations. He used the principle of talisman arrays to design a simple chain of black holes with 3 black holes as the foundation. If he succeeded, the consumption of energy would be 3 times higher, and the speed at which it absorbed and decomposed energy would be 9 times faster. If the number of black holes was doubled, the power would increase by several times. However, Yang Tian did not have much confidence in achieving this goal. First, because he did not have the experience left behind by his predecessors, he did not have a complete understanding of the black holes. Second, even if he succeeded to place them in a fixed position, Yang Tian did not have the slightest confidence in this. Turning imagination into reality was not an easy task. Chapter 763. Yang Tian's mind was completely attached to the black hole in an instant. Previously, under the control of Yang Tian's mind, the speed of the black hole's rotation had slowed down and was rotating at the slowest speed. This was because Yang Tian discovered in the process of his previous attempts that the faster the black hole rotated, the harder it was for him to control his mind. If he wanted to separate the black hole into multiple parts, he had to try his best to keep the black hole under his control. Separate, Yang Tian, who put all his mind on the black hole, sent out his most powerful mind to the black hole. The shape of the black hole was extremely special. No matter from which direction, it looked like a flat black surface. Under Yang Tian's mind, this flat black hole suddenly distorted, as if it was pulled by a powerful external force, and instantly became oval. This was the separation method that Yang Tian thought of. This method was inspired by Yang Tian's cell separation. The reason why the black hole changed shape was, of course, because it was affected by Yang Tian's mind. The round black hole first became oval, then it became long, and finally, both ends became round. It looked like it was about to separate. Feeling the changes in the black hole, Yang Tian could not help but be overjoyed, and his consciousness could not help but relax a little. At this moment, boom, Yang Tian's consciousness suddenly roared. A powerful recoil appeared on the black hole, shaking Yang Tian's consciousness apart. Just as it was about to split into 2 black holes, it suddenly merged together and returned to its original state. Fortunately, this was Yang Tian's energy world. After his consciousness was shaken apart, it did not dissipate, and it instantly condensed again. After his consciousness condensed together again, Yang Tian could not help but feel a lingering fear. He thought that fortunately, he had swallowed a lot of that purple liquid, and his consciousness had become several times stronger than before. Otherwise, the recoil generated by the black hole this time would have finished him. The consciousness that was recondensed was much weaker than before. My consciousness is not strong enough. No, it's because I let my guard down. Failure wasn't scary. If one failed and couldn't find a reason for the failure, that would be the scariest, because that meant that even if one tried again, one would fail again. Having found a reason, Yang Tian carefully recalled the changes he felt during the process of the black hole separation. Although he failed, Yang Tian did gain something. In order to increase the chances of success the next time, Yang Tian withdrew his consciousness from the energy world. Then, Yang Tian took out the purple crystals from his storage bracelet and swallowed the purple liquid again. After spending more than half a day and swallowing an unknown amount of purple liquid, in front of him, there was already a large pile of crystals that looked like ice cubes. During this process, Yang Tian was surprised to find that his consciousness had at least doubled, and his control over the energy in his body had become even clearer. After releasing his attention from his body, Yang Tian also discovered that his five senses had become stronger. A person's consciousness was a wonderful thing. It existed by relying on the body, but the body also restrained it at the same time. The sudden increase in his consciousness gave Yang Tian an indescribable, wonderful feeling. His body seemed to have become lighter. He could see further, and he could hear softer sounds. Also, the depths of the sea of stars seemed to have produced a kind of attractive force for his body. This wonderful feeling lasted for an extremely short period of time, only about 2 to 3 seconds. What kind of realm is this? Yang Tian's gaze passed through the gaps between the leaves and looked into the depths of the universe. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, momentarily forgetting what he wanted to do. Chu Yinguing appeared not far away again, and the little blue dragon was also there. This was because just now, they suddenly felt a strange energy fluctuation from Yang Tian's body. This was a kind of power that Chu Yinguing and the little blue dragon had never felt before. After pondering for a moment, Yang Tian suddenly shook his head and finally woke up. He once again threw himself into his huge and intricate plan. This idea of yours is very crazy. The possibility of failure is very high, but if it succeeds, I don't even know how to calculate your battle strength. When Yang Tian was preparing to separate the black holes in the energy world again, the strange program couldn't help but speak up. Crazy? Yes, it was indeed crazy, because this method was completely like crossing a river by feeling the stones. It was a method that left no room for future generations. Yang Tian didn't reply to the strange program. Just as he was about to send his consciousness into the energy world again, the strange program spoke up again. If you succeed in separating, I can be of some help. Good. Then help me design the various numbers of black holes and how to arrange them so that their power can be concentrated. After Yang Tian finished speaking, the strange program immediately agreed. To it, this was just a small matter. But if Yang Tian succeeded, what the strange program said before was not flattering Yang Tian. When the time came, it really could calculate how terrifying Yang Tian's battle strength would be. Soon, the strange program began to calculate for Yang Tian. Yang Tian, who had once again sent his consciousness into the original realm, thought that it would be easy to control the black holes like before. This was because his consciousness, which was also what others called his soul, was much stronger. Previously, the black holes had scattered Yang Tian's consciousness. Although Yang Tian had been injured, this process was actually like tempering a sword. After condensing his consciousness again and being supplemented with suitable energy, Yang Tian's consciousness was much more condensed. Logically speaking, according to his previous experience, the process of separating the black holes should be smooth. However, when Yang Tian's consciousness once again descended on the black holes, that brief and wonderful feeling appeared again. This made Yang Tian unable to concentrate. The result was beautiful, but in most cases, it was more difficult. This was what people often said. The road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. After an unknown amount of time, he finally managed to penetrate all of his consciousness back into the black holes with great difficulty. However, this black hole suddenly gave birth to a rebellious thought. This thought was very faint, but it reduced Yang Tian's control over the black holes countless times. Although this was a risky matter, Yang Tian was not rash. He withdrew his consciousness from the black holes and began to think. The black holes had actually developed self-awareness. This was impossible because black holes did not have the structure to develop self-awareness. Then, the problem should be with him. For the first time, Yang Tian paid attention to his own consciousness. All this time, no matter what kind of cultivation process he had been through, Yang Tian had always focused on the changes in his body and the energy world. He had never thought that his consciousness would change. 1 day, 2 days. Soon, using the Ketla star's time, 21 days had passed. Chu Yingying had come several times. Originally, she wanted to tell Yang Tian about that matter immediately. However, when she found that Yang Tian had reached a critical point in his cultivation, she decided that at this time, she could not disturb Yang Tian no matter what. In Chu Yingying's mind, even if this world was destroyed, it was not worth mentioning compared to Yang Tian's cultivation. Chu Yingying had no sense of belonging to this strange world at all. This matter was related to the 3 great temples. Because of Chu Yingying's sudden appearance, the powerful energy of the Tree of World was completely utilized, making Guangxing and the others return empty-handed. However, they did not give up. Although the land did not split because of the Tree of World, many places had not been completely healed. There are still countless strange spaces underground. Because of the destruction caused by the Talisman Master, these spaces were very messy. If all these spaces were destroyed, the Earth Vein would appear. In this way, Guangxing could still achieve his goal. Although she lived in this world, she had no feelings for it. Chu Yingying did not know about Guangxing and the others' plan, but the roots of the Tree of World had spread all over the land. She could sense some large energy fluctuations. At this time, dozens of the Tree of World's enormous roots had been destroyed because of Guangxing and the others. Moreover, this destruction had not stopped. After analyzing hundreds of points of destruction, Chu Yingying concluded that this was a major event. If this was allowed to happen and not stopped, the Tree of World might be destroyed in the end. The Tree of World's weakness was its roots. This was because its long roots had already extended beyond the range of the canopy. Only within the canopy could Chu Yingying borrow the power of the Tree of World to stop it. After making up her mind, Chu Yingying focused her attention on Yang Tian. 21 days had passed. For Yang Tian, he had finally reached the critical point. During this long time, Yang Tian had not controlled the black hole. Instead, he had been organizing his consciousness. No matter how sturdy a fortress was, it could be breached from the inside. Yang Tian did not want to see any hidden dangers in his body. After 21 days of hard work, Yang Tian did not go to waste. A strange energy was extracted from Yang Tian's consciousness. This was something that Yang Tian had spent a lot of effort to achieve. If not for his mental power, Yang Tian would not have been able to do it. Under the gaze of Yang Tian's consciousness, a fist-sized gray energy was condensed into a ball by his mental power. After extracting this energy from his consciousness, Yang Tian did not dare to use his consciousness to come into contact with it again. This was because once his consciousness came into contact with this ball of energy, it would seep into his consciousness again. This happened because this ball of energy was originally produced from Yang Tian's consciousness. When Yang Tian extracted it, it was like using a knife to cut his flesh. This thing, what exactly is it, controlling his mental power to pass through the black hole? Yang Tian finally transferred this ball of energy out and held it in his palm. He was full of doubts. This should be a special energy produced by a life talisman master. Suddenly, The strange program gave Yang Tian an answer. After the program finished speaking, Yang Tian nodded. Although this energy was very strange, Yang Tian did not plan to keep it and was ready to destroy it. Perhaps it was because it was produced from Yang Tian's consciousness, but when Yang Tian had this thought, the gray energy became restless and wanted to break through Yang Tian's mental power to escape. Yang Tian knew that if he really let it go, this energy would definitely drill into his body. Yang Tian had put in a lot of effort when he was capturing this wisp of energy. Otherwise, it would not have taken so long. Yang Tian's mental power had also increased during this time. When the gray energy was struggling, Yang Tian immediately strengthened his mental power so that it could not break free no matter what. The most important step to destroy this ball of energy had been done. As long as Yang Tian sent it into the endless sea of stars, it would quickly dissipate. Yang Tian, who had made up his mind, could not help but stop at the last moment. Perhaps it was because this energy also came from him. Destroying it was like killing one's own child. Yang Tian did not know why he had this feeling in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally decided to find a way to preserve it. In fact, as long as he cut off its connection with his body, it would not be able to escape. After some thought, Yang Tian took out some bluestone boxes from his storage bracelet. These boxes had runes on them. They were originally used to store beast cores to prevent the energy from spreading out. To store this kind of energy, it shouldn't be that simple. Yang Tian searched the space in his storage bracelet again. All of a sudden, he saw a black sphere. For some reason, Yang Tian felt that this black sphere was the gray energy's home as soon as he saw it. After this strange feeling, Yang Tian immediately released the black sphere from his storage bracelet. Then, Yang Tian let the gray energy, which was wrapped in his mental power, approach the black sphere. Yang Tian was very careful throughout the process. It took him half a day to complete it. Perhaps this feeling was real. At the last moment, Yang Tian vaguely felt that the gray energy was in a cheerful mood. After the gray energy entered the black sphere, Yang Tian took out a large stone box and put the black sphere inside. Then, with the help of the strange program, Yang Tian carved densely packed runes on it. After feeling that it was safe, Yang Tian put the box into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian decided that he would never touch this box again unless it was necessary. After perfectly handling the gray energy, Yang Tian took some time to calm down. Once again, he began his great undertaking of splitting the holes. In order to eliminate the hidden dangers in his body, Yang Tian spent some time. The next process was the same as the first one. What Yang Tian did not expect was that the next process was beyond his expectations. The slowly rotating black hole quickly became oval under Yang Tian's will. Then it was elongated. The two ends became round and slowly separated. The moment the two black holes separated, there was a strong repulsive reaction between them. They quickly separated. After separating, the black holes moved far away and started operating on their own. Seeing this, Yang Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief. His bold idea had finally taken the most crucial step. Next, he would split more black holes. When that time came, he did not know how many black holes there would be. Chapter 764. After the two black holes were formed, Yang Tian did not immediately split the two black holes into four again. Compared to before, the two black holes that were separated were much smaller. Yang Tian's consciousness descended onto one of the small black holes to observe what had changed compared to before. This process was very important. Yang Tian did not want the separated black hole to be only half as powerful as before. If that was the case, his original calculations would be greatly discounted. Just as Yang Tian had expected, the small black holes that were separated from the big black hole only had half the power of the original. However, the rotation speed was the same as the big black hole, maintained within a certain range. At first, Yang Tian was a little disappointed, but after realizing that the rotation speed of the small black holes did not decrease, he was relieved. This meant that as long as there was enough energy, the two split black holes would still grow bigger. At this moment, Yang Tian's huge origin realm finally came into play. Under the control of Yang Tian's mind, a large amount of energy in the origin realm was replenished into the two new black holes. The two black holes that were controlled by Yang Tian's mind rotated at the fastest speed and slowly grew in size. During this process, the distance between the two black holes grew further and further due to the repulsive reaction. The two black holes grew at a very fast speed and were completed in less than half a day. Their size became as big as before they were separated. They could have grown bigger, but Yang Tian understood the principle of going too far was as bad as falling short. This was because the bigger the black hole, the stronger the will to control it. When the time came, many black holes would be separated. If each one required a strong will to control, the number of black holes would be correspondingly reduced in the end. What Yang Tian wanted now was quantity. At least 12 black holes were needed to meet Yang Tian's ideal requirement. The strange program had helped Yang Tian design a black hole array formed by black holes. Because Yang Tian had personally observed and obtained the data, this array formation was very precise. After Yang Tian saw it, he could not suppress his excitement. Of course, while he was excited, he could not help but worry. This was because, according to the data calculated by the strange program, the most powerful talisman array combination in this array formation formed by black holes was at least 100 times more powerful than a single black hole. The number of black holes required for this combination was 12. In addition, there were 4, 8, all the way to 12. As for anything else, the strange program felt that there was no need. It had calculated Yang Tian's control ability and found that he could barely control 12 black holes at the same time. Therefore, the strange program had perfected the combination of the 12 black holes. During normal battles, Yang Tian could use 4 of them. When he encountered an opponent who was slightly stronger than him, he could use 8 of them. As for experts like Kuo-Xing, he needed 12. The more black holes he used, the more Yang Tian would consume. After strengthening the 2 black holes, Yang Tian began to separate the black holes. This process lasted for 3 days. As soon as he opened his eyes, Yang Tian began to throw a large number of multicolored crystals into the black hole. The amount of energy consumed by the 12 black holes was simply too terrifying. Normally, Yang Tian would have to consume at least 10 times more energy to maintain its operation. Because of the existence of these black holes, Yang Tian's combat strength had increased. However, the amount of energy consumed was too great, and he did not know if this would affect his future advancement. For example, if other cultivators were a small truck, then Yang Tian was now a heavy truck. After absorbing enough energy, the 12 black holes in Yang Tian's origin realm finally stabilized. Next, Yang Tian spent half a day adjusting his breathing. When he felt that the energy in his body had stabilized and his mind had calmed down, he began the next important step. The 12 black holes were each the same size as the original one. They were distributed in the vast energy world of Yang Tian's origin realm. The 12 black holes repelled each other. It was a very precise job to place them according to the strange program's calculation. Moreover, it was very exhausting. This was the last step, and he could not fail. As long as it was completed, the strange program had already calculated the process. Yang Tian followed the plan calculated by the strange program. First, he chose the central black hole among the 12 black holes as the center. This black hole could not be moved, and after it was placed, the black hole had to be enlarged so that it could withstand more energy and increase its rotation speed. After choosing, Yang Tian divided his mind into 2, which was to say, multitasking. Fortunately, it was very easy for Yang Tian to move the position of the black holes. The difficulty was to overcome the repulsive force produced by the black holes. Soon, Yang Tian moved 2 of the black holes. The 3 black holes and the central black hole were almost in a straight line. After finishing the placement, Yang Tian first looked carefully and found that the positions were exactly the same as the simulation provided by the strange program. Only then did he move on to the next step. This was more difficult. This was because he had to control 4 black holes at the same time and divide them into 4 directions to surround the previous 3 black holes. This step was more difficult because he had to multitask. If he was not careful and did not control his strength well, the previous step would be wasted. In order to ensure that the black holes' force fields would not interfere with each other, Yang Tian first moved the 5 black holes further away and calmed his mind for a moment before starting. This step took Yang Tian a long time. It took him a full 3 days to place the 4 black holes. After completing this step, the strange thing was that Yang Tian did not feel tired at all. Instead, he felt more energetic than before. During this process, Yang Tian's willpower had unknowingly increased. This was something he had not expected at all. Next was the placement of the last 5 black holes. One more black hole was not to be underestimated. This step was the most difficult. At this time, if one looked down from above and looked down at the black holes that had been placed, they would be connected. It looked like a line drawn in a circle. The arrangement of the black holes designed by the strange program was originally on a flat surface. Next, it was 3-dimensional. The remaining 5 black holes had to be placed in place at once. Yang Tian spent at least 3 days preparing for this step. His consciousness had been focused on the 5 black holes until he suddenly felt that it was ready. Then he moved at will. The 5 black holes moved at different angles, directions, and speeds at the same time. When the 5 black holes were ready, the power of the 12 black holes connected and resonated in the original realm. Immediately after, the 12 black holes began to change their positions and rearrange themselves. This transformation was completed in an instant. After success, what Yang Tian did not expect was that the 12 black holes were arranged in the shape of a cross. The 2 in the middle were closest to each other, as if they were a whole. As for the other 10, they were closest to the 2 black holes in the center, 1 on each side. The other 8 were divided into 4 directions, with 2 in each direction. When the chain of black holes that Yang Tian envisioned in his mind was completed, the energy of the entire original realm gathered toward the chain of black holes. Yang Tian was shocked. Chapter 765. Rumble. As soon as the chain of black holes was formed, a powerful energy storm was formed in Yang Tian's energy world. The entire origin realm began to shake. The power of the chain of black holes was great, but the energy it consumed was too much. Even Yang Tian's energy world could not satisfy it. Yang Tian was shocked. He quickly sent his consciousness to the chain of black holes. This was actually Yang Tian's mistake. The chain of black holes was a powerful weapon, but it was precisely because of such a weapon that it could not go out of control. If he was careless, even the person who owned it would be destroyed. With great difficulty, Yang Tian used his strong willpower to calm the chain of black holes that was madly absorbing energy. What puzzled Yang Tian was where the energy that the chain of black holes was madly absorbing had gone. In an instant, at least dozens of planets disappeared from Yang Tian's energy world. These planets were completely formed by the condensation of pure energy. When the powerful Beast King came to Yang Tian's energy world, it only destroyed less than 3 planets and had enough energy to level up. Phew! Finally, the chain of black holes calmed down. Yang Tian could not help but let out a long breath. This huge and delicate project was finally completed. Next, it was time to test its power. On the Tree of World, Yang Tian did not dare to casually release his black holes. He looked down the tree. On the other side of the land, there was a vast space. He could use it at will without worrying about the Tree of World hurting him. It had to be said that a person's temperament had a lot to do with the power they possessed. In Chuyin Gai's eyes, Yang Tian's temperament was more profound. As for the little blue dragon, when Yang Tian's chain of black holes went out of control, it felt an energy that could destroy the heavens and the earth. Even the powerful little blue dragon felt that in the face of such a powerful aura, its powerful body would be destroyed in an instant. Of course, this was just a feeling. What happened? After Yang Tian finished cultivating, Chu Yin Gang walked over. Seeing Chu Yin and Gu Ying's eyes, Yang Tian knew that something had happened. In fact, Yang Tian had already sensed that something was wrong with Chu Yin Gang. However, in order to calm down and complete his plan, he had deliberately not asked. If he did not complete the chain of black holes this time, he might not have another chance. Sometimes when cultivating, especially when creating a new cultivation method, the time was right. If one seized the opportunity, success would follow naturally. If one missed it, they might never be able to complete it again. It was because of this that Yang Tian pretended not to notice anything even though he knew that Chu Yin Gang was in trouble. There are some changes on the other side of the continent. As Chu Yin Gang spoke, she took out a white stone slab of uniform density from her storage bracelet. There were messy blue lines drawn on it. Between the lines, there were many red dots. Yang Tian took a look and found that these red dots were distributed very evenly. After Chu Yin Gang's explanation, Yang Tian finally understood. Those blue lines represented the main root system of the world tree, and those red dots represented the damaged areas. This white stone slab was less than 1 meter in length and width, but the land area it represented was not even comparable to the land area of 10 Earths combined. Looking at the arrangement of these red dots, Yang Tian felt a sense of familiarity in his mind. Suddenly, he had an idea. He took out a rune pen from his storage bracelet and drew lines, connecting the dozens of red dots. This time, the diagram finally became clear. It turned out that these were the basic arrangement points of a rune array. What kind of rune array was it? The strange program had instilled a lot of rune information into Yang Tian. Although he did not deliberately study runes, he understood the basic knowledge of rune arrays at a glance. Oh, right. Seeing Yang Tian's puzzled expression, Chu Yin Gang suddenly said. Then, Chu Yin Gang raised her left hand and used her middle finger to tap between her eyebrows. Immediately after, a wave of mental energy appeared between her eyebrows and condensed into a ball at her fingertip. This was some of Chu Yin Gang's memory information obtained from the world tree. Yang Tian used his mental energy to receive this memory information. After looking at it, Yang Tian frowned and turned to the little blue dragon, who had grown much fatter, and said, "Xiaolong, we're going to be busy again." Hearing Yang Tian's words, the little blue dragon's eyes lit up. After staying here for a while, although the leaves of the world tree were delicious and full of energy, after eating too much, even the most delicious food would become tasteless. The little blue dragon naturally understood what Yang Tian meant. That was, they were going to start fighting again. This time, we're going to the Divine Palace. Yang Tian did not care about what the 3 divine palaces were going to do. Instead, he pointed to the 3 divine palaces. It was because of the power of the divine palaces that the cultivators living on this continent knew them very well. It was said that it was the largest palace in the world. After countless years, no one knew how much wealth it had stored. For cultivators, the wealth was naturally cultivation resources. Since the divine palaces were so rich, there were naturally many people who wanted to take advantage of them. However, after so many years, no one had succeeded. This was because the place where the divine palaces stored their wealth was actually a huge and special storage space. Unless someone had the ability to crack an ownerless storage tool, they could only open it. This alone had stumped countless talisman geniuses. Another thing that made it difficult for people to succeed was that this huge storage space was connected to the mind of the Divine Palace's Lord. As long as someone touched it, the Lord would be able to sense it immediately. Every Lord of the Divine Palaces was a top powerhouse in the world. Therefore, unless the Lord was willing, no one could take anything from the huge storage space of the Divine Palaces. Yang Tian did not care about the destruction that Kuo-Xing and the others were doing. Instead, he wanted to destroy the Divine Palaces and even dig out their treasures. First, he did not want to be led by the nose anymore. He had to deal with whatever others did. Second, Kuo-Xing and the others were not in the divine palaces. For his huge plan, most of the powerhouses had been transferred away by Kuo-Xing. This was the time when the divine palaces were at their weakest. This method was actually besieging the way to rescue the Zhao. Kuo-Xing and the others would certainly not let others destroy the divine palaces. When Kuo-Xing and the others returned, their plan of destruction would be slowed down. Third, if he could get replenishment from the divine palaces, Yang Tian's worries would be relieved. After all, there were not many colorful crystals left. If he wanted to replenish a large amount of energy in the future, he would have to go to the starry seas to hunt exotic beasts. If the legends were true, even if he obtained a drop in the ocean, it would be enough for Yang Tian to consume for a long time. Of course, it was not that easy to carry out this plan. The formation outside the divine palaces was a barrier that ordinary cultivators could not overcome. This was the case for others, but for Yang Tian, it was not difficult. Chapter 766. During this period of time, Yang Tian had not only cultivated a heaven-defying technique like the black hole chain, but he had also straightened out the aura in his body. After making the plan, Yang Tian was ready to set off. With the help of the world tree, Chu Yin Gai's cultivation could be described as advancing by leaps and bounds. In a few months, she had already advanced to the illusion realm. The world tree was a huge energy treasury for Chu Yin Gai. As long as the world tree existed, she could absorb its energy to strengthen herself. If not for the fact that Kuo-Xing and the others were causing trouble and needed Chu Yin Gai to keep an eye on them, Chu Yin Gai could have left with Yang Tian. The world tree did not restrict Chu Yin Gai's range of activity, but it relied on Chu Yin Gai to protect it. Previously, Yang Tian had been wondering why the world tree in the music boundary starfield was destroyed. Some time ago, he finally got the answer from Chu Yin Gai. It turned out that Tian Hun and the others had transferred the person who had established contact with the world tree away. That was how they had succeeded. Otherwise, even if Tian Hun joined forces, they would not have been able to destroy the world tree. Although she wanted to leave with Yang Tian, Chu Yin Gai thought of the danger the world tree was in and resisted the urge. Before leaving, Yang Tian used the world tree again to contact Qin Fei. The communication between the two was also short. After this contact, Yang Tian finally found out about Qin Fei's current situation. What Yang Tian did not expect was that Qin Fei had actually lost her godhead because of him. She was even bullied by the gods in the divine realm. He had to vent his anger. Although Qin Fei did not care, Yang Tian remembered it. In fact, Qin Fei did not explain the process in detail. But how could she hide it from Yang Tian? Qin Fei was still as simple as before. She had not changed much. The current Yang Tian was much more thoughtful and could naturally guess. After preparing, Yang Tian set off with the little blue dragon. Most of the space they had come from had disappeared during the growth of the world tree. It was obviously impossible to return like before. Chu Yin and Guiying sent Yang Tian off. The roots of the Tree of World had already spread across more than half of the continent. Wherever the roots of the Tree of World grew, Yang Tian could go there. When the roots of the world tree completely penetrated the vast continent, countless virtual roots would grow out and extend into the even vaster sea of stars, absorbing energy from the sea of stars. At that time, the world tree would be fully grown and the entire continent would become one with the world tree. At that time, not only would the world tree no longer absorb the energy of the continent, it would also use the energy it absorbed from the sea of stars to nourish the land it took root on. At that time, the living environment of this continent would become better and better, and it would become a paradise on Earth. Of course, in order to become a real paradise on Earth, the social environment had to be changed. Otherwise, no matter how good a place was, it would be destroyed by cultivators who only knew how to destroy and not how to build. Yang Tian was directly teleported to the cloud region by Chu Yin Gai. The cloud region had the best environment in the entire continent and had always been occupied by the three great temples. Of course, that was in the past. The destruction caused by the Talisman Lord shook the entire continent, and the cloud region was not spared. Although some time had passed, Yang Tian could still see collapsed mountains, newly formed canyons, and countless ruined buildings from where he stood. Not all of the humans living in the cloud region were cultivators. After so many years of peace, the sudden calamity caused many people to be unable to adapt. Yang Tian walked through the previously bustling streets that were now in ruins. On the recently cleaned streets, he saw that many people still had sorrowful expressions on their faces. It was unknown how many ordinary human lives had been taken away by this disaster. This place was not far from the Wuji Temple. Ordinary people could not see the Wuji Temple. In order to protect the supreme dignity of the temples and make people revere them, the three great temples were covered by talisman arrays. Only cultivators who understood talisman arrays knew the location of the temples. Yang Tian wore a loose black robe, and his head was covered. The little blue dragon did not climb on his shoulder, but hid in Yang Tian's black robe. Yang Tian was now the #1 enemy of the temple. If he were to show his true face, in addition to the special symbol of the little azure dragon, the moment he appeared here, the people of the temple would know in less than a minute. Walking to a deserted corner, Yang Tian looked up in the direction of the talisman energy. Before coming out of the blood fetus, Yang Tian's body had been sent a large amount of talisman information by the strange program. These talisman information had already merged with Yang Tian's flesh and blood. Now, even without the strange program's reminder, Yang Tian could sense the talisman energy and know what type of talisman energy it was. The direction Yang Tian was looking at was diagonally above the town he was currently in. Looking at it with the naked eye, there was nothing there. But Yang Tian knew that it was where the everlasting temple was located. The strange program analyzed the fluctuations of talisman energy, and in Yang Tian's mind, a somewhat blurry image appeared. The place Yang Tian was looking at was the entrance of the temple. The entire temple stretched from the top of the small town to the sky. It was incomparably vast, probably dozens of times larger than Hero City on Earth. The corner of Yang Tian's mouth curled up. His body moved, and he rushed to the entrance of the everlasting temple. While his body was still in the air, Yang Tian's hands moved, and invisible talisman energy was released from Yang Tian's hands. When the talisman energy released by Yang Tian's hands touched the talisman array on the everlasting temple, a passage suddenly appeared in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian's figure also entered this passage. In the small town, there were naturally people from the everlasting temple watching. But when Yang Tian moved, the space around him was also distorted by the talisman energy, creating a kind of invisibility effect. These temple guards, who were not proficient in talismans, did not see Yang Tian enter the temple. After entering the spatial passage, in the blink of an eye, Yang Tian appeared from the spatial passage. The talisman energy at the entrance of the passage was the weakest part of the everlasting temple's talisman array, because people often came in and out of the temple. Of course, only the ordinary disciples of the temple would go in and out of the temple through this passage. Under normal circumstances, people with the status of head manager and above would use a special teleportation talisman array. As soon as Yang Tian appeared, he landed on the steps at the entrance. There were 2 guards at the entrance, and after seeing Yang Tian appear, they still maintained a lazy expression on their faces. In the past, there were many people coming in and out of here, but after Kuang Xing left the temple with a large number of people, there were much fewer people coming in and out. These 2 people, who were extremely confident in the temple's talisman array, were not wary of Yang Tian. In the temple, Yang Tian's attire was also common, because there were always some people who could not be exposed. These 2 people happened to be on both sides in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian glanced at the expressions on their faces and directly strode past them, walking up to the top. After entering here, the scene in front of him was very different, making Yang Tian feel as if he was in a fairyland. Thinking about it, Only the virtual game world he had played before could have such a beautiful and grand scene. Chapter 767. After entering the everlasting temple from the outside world, it was like entering another world. Yang Tian held his breath and focused his mind as he walked forward. Every few dozen steps, there were two guards in black armor. Perhaps the two temple guards at the entrance did not notice Yang Tian's abnormality, but the guards on both sides ignored him along the way. Whoosh! When Yang Tian crossed hundreds of steps, there was a sharp whistle behind him. Yang Tian looked back and saw a young man in a black robe running up the steps, looking very anxious. The speed of this person was very fast. He quickly passed by Yang Tian and entered a large hall in front of him. Clang! 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 A moment later, a loud bell rang throughout the everlasting temple. This should be a warning sound. After hearing the sound, thousands of black armor guards rushed out from the front door. These people quickly occupied the various points of the temple. Yang Tian knew that something big must have happened in the temple. Otherwise, it would be impossible to suddenly increase the security. Yang Tian's reaction was very fast. While the bell was still ringing and the people in the temple were still in a state of confusion, he quickly ran up the stairs. Yang Tian did not enter the hall. Instead, he ran from the side and entered a man-made mountain range. In the everlasting temple, the most common thing was not palaces and various pavilions, but mountains, just like the peaks of the outside world. Some of the peaks were as high as 1,000 meters. These mountains were obviously not man-made. They were directly dug out from the ground and moved here by the everlasting temple. Yang Tian's unusual movements were discovered by others very quickly. A disciple of the temple in the illusion realm chased after him and stopped in front of Yang Tian. "Which temple are you from? Please show me your temple token." The temple token was a symbol of the identity of a disciple of the temple. Only disciples with a temple token could enter and leave some areas of the temple. Before Yang Tian entered the everlasting temple, he had naturally heard of the temple token. He wanted to take the opportunity to get one so that it would be more convenient to enter and exit the temple. One had to know that there were many disciples in the temple. If someone did not have a temple token, it would be impossible to track them down. "Do you have one?" Looking at the young man who stopped him, Yang Tian asked with a smile. "Of course I do." With that, the young disciple took out a rectangular blue token from his waist and showed it to Yang Tian. Yang Tian looked at the blue token and nodded with a smile. "Where is yours?" After the young man took the token, he immediately asked. At this time, he had already noticed that something was wrong. He became vigilant, thinking that if the other party made any strange movements, he would immediately call the police. To the disciples of the Temple of God, the hall plate was not only a symbol of status, but also a communication device. When he asked Yang Tian, the young disciple kept his hand on his waist. As long as he moved his hand, the alarm would be activated. At that time, the thousands of temple guards would be able to rush over in a few breaths. Of course I have a token." Before Yang Tian could finish his words, the young disciple rolled his eyes, let out a painful groan, and fell backward. Looking at the disciple on the ground, Yang Tian smiled. The little blue dragon rubbed its claws on the ground. It turned out that when it noticed that someone was approaching, the little blue dragon left Yang Tian and hid to the side. When Yang Tian gave the signal, the little blue dragon immediately acted. In an instant, the little blue dragon first crippled the young man's hand that was on the temple token with one claw. Then, it flashed to the man's neck and pierced the back of his neck with its dragon whiskers. The little blue dragon did not kill the young man. It only made him temporarily unconscious. Yang Tian had a lot of questions to ask after capturing a person alive. Carrying the unconscious young man, Yang Tian was led by the little blue dragon to the back of a mountain rock. Yang Tian looked around and found that there were no traces of anyone being here. Soon, with the help of the strange program, he set up a concealment glyph. After making these preparations, Yang Tian waited quietly. If it was an ordinary human, Their nervous system would be broken by the little blue dragon, and they would be paralyzed. But this person was a cultivator. The cells in his body were extremely strong. He recovered quickly and slowly woke up. As soon as this person opened his eyes, he saw Yang Tian's smiling face. His first reaction was to touch his waist, but he touched nothing. The temple token that was originally on his waist was gone. Is this the thing you want to take? Yang Tian waved the blue temple token in his hand in front of the young man's eyes. Who are you? The young man asked. He jumped up from the ground and retreated. This person's reaction was very fast. The moment he woke up, he saw his surroundings clearly. The direction he was retreating to was the side of the huge rock. As long as he went out and roared, the temple guards would hear him. Yang Tian did not stop him. But suddenly, a huge claw landed on the young man's shoulder. He turned his head in shock and raised his head slightly. He saw the little blue dragon's fierce eyes. The little blue dragon that had grown bigger was still very intimidating in the eyes of others. When this person saw the little blue dragon's eyes, his body could not help but tremble. With the little blue dragon's current size, it could bite his head off from his neck in one bite. The young man originally wanted to resist, but whether it was Yang Tian or the little blue dragon, they were all much stronger than him. After being frightened by the little blue dragon, he did not have any thoughts of resistance. Be honest. If you cooperate with me, I won't kill you. Sensing the change in the young man's eyes, Yang Tian knew that he had given in and said with a smile, You are Yang Tian. After coming back to his senses, the young man sized up Yang Tian and said with some uncertainty. Yang Tian could not help but laugh. I didn't expect that I would be so famous. Even a small figure in the everlasting temple knows the name of Yang Tian. Hearing Yang Tian call him a small figure, the young man frowned and said with some dissatisfaction, I am not a small figure. I am one of the candidates for the successor of the Chengwu clan. My name is Chengwu Xingyang. Our clan has noticed you for a long time. You are a genius. Before Yang Tian could ask, Chengwu Xingyang said his clan and his name. In the end, he even flattered Yang Tian. In the everlasting temple, there were many disciples who were elite members of various clans. Chengwu Xingyang was such a person. This kind of person was not cultivated by the temple since childhood and was not so loyal to the temple. Their purpose of entering the temple was nothing more than to get benefits from the temple. For example, cultivation methods, some special medicines, and so on. Yang Tian understood that Chengwu Xingyang said his clan and name to reduce the hostility between them. In fact, the meaning was very clear. I am from the clan of the temple. As long as I can save my life, I am willing to cooperate. In this regard, Yang Tian did not care. Whether Chengwu Xingyang was a disciple of a clan or a talent cultivated by the temple since childhood, he had a way to make him fully cooperate with him. Now, can you tell me how you obtained this plate? Yang Tian waved the plate in his hand and asked with a smile. Chapter 768. In order to move freely in the temple, Yang Tian had to obtain such a palace token. Without guessing, Yang Tian knew that this kind of token could only be used by himself and could not be given to others. Don't underestimate this small token. There were hundreds and thousands of small talisman arrays on it. The token was also made of special materials. To make such a token in batches, one would definitely need special tools. To other talisman masters, it was extremely difficult to decipher a palace token. But for Yang Tian, it was actually very easy to imitate. As long as he obtained a palace token, the strange program could calculate the talisman arrays on it and then make some changes to bind the palace token to Yang Tian. At that time, except for the management of the palace tokens, no one would be able to tell that Yang Tian had sneaked in. Although Yang Tian could use Chengwu Xingyang's token after deciphering it, the person represented by such a token would definitely have a very low status in the temple. Yang Tian needed a higher level one. Palace token, Chengwu Xingyang murmured. Immediately, he guessed Yang Tian's thoughts. At this time, Chengwu Xingyang couldn't help but praise Yang Tian in his heart, because the temple was a place where one's token was not important. If one had a high-level palace token, one could even directly receive a large amount of cultivation resources in the temple. The priests in the temple had such a privilege. Of course, the resources they could receive were limited for a certain period of time. It was impossible to receive unlimited resources. In addition to cultivation resources, with a high-level palace token, one could enter and exit some secret places in the temple at will. For thousands of years, the Chengwu clan had been sending a large number of young clansmen to the three major temples in order to obtain higher-level cultivation techniques. Cultivation techniques of the 100 transformation realm. But after so many years, no one had succeeded. Instead, a large amount of clan resources had been wasted. If this time, Chengwu Xingyang looked at Yang Tian, his eyes could not help but light up. If he cooperated with Yang Tian, would he be able to achieve his goal? At that time, as long as he obtained the cultivation method of the 100 transformation realm, then the next candidate for the martial arts clan head would definitely fall into his hands. Seeing the sudden flash of light in Chengwu Xingyang's eyes, Yang Tian knew what Chengwu Xingyang was thinking. There were tens of thousands of clansmen in a family. Chengwu Xingyang was sent to the divine palace by his family. Naturally, he was the most outstanding person among the younger generation of the Chengwu family. At this moment, he understood the benefits he could obtain from this. However, if he failed and was caught by the temple, or if Yang Tian betrayed him in the end, not only would his life be in danger, but his entire family would also be implicated. Hall plate. After saying these two words, Chengwu Xingyang didn't say anything for a long time. In the end, a struggling expression appeared in Chengwu Xingyang's eyes. Should he follow Yang Tian and take a risk, leaving the future of himself and his family in the hands of Yang Tian, or should he follow Yang Tian's instructions and leave immediately after? Yang Tian didn't disturb Chengwu Xingyang as he weighed the pros and cons. He had plenty of time. The little blue dragon at the side looked at Chengwu Xingyang and was a little impatient. He thought that this guy was too slow. In this aspect, he was far inferior to Yang Tian. After thinking for a full 5 minutes, Chengwu Xingyang gritted his teeth and said to Yang Tian, I can help you. I can help you wholeheartedly. After this, I hope to get what I want. The effect of taking the initiative to help was completely different from being coerced. With a spy like Chengwu Xingyang, Yang Tian's future plans would be much smoother. Yang Tian was naturally willing to do this. After Chengwu Xingyang finished speaking, he smiled and said, Don't worry, after this matter is over. Actually, you don't have to worry about what happens after this. Because after this place is completely destroyed, all traces of you will be annihilated. Destroy the entire divine palace. When Chengwu Xingyang heard Yang Tian's words, he couldn't help but be shocked. But immediately after, Chengwu Xingyang became excited for no reason. The three divine palaces were like a mountain that pressed down on the heads of all the families. For countless years, the families had paid too much in order to get what they wanted from the divine palaces, including a large number of cultivation resources, as well as countless lives. The origin of all this was many years ago. It was so long ago that many people couldn't remember how many years ago it was. At that time, there was only one everlasting temple. In order to achieve the unified use of this world's resources, they cultivated talents who could explore the universe. Of course, this was just an excuse for exploitation. For this excuse, in the following 10,000 years, the everlasting temple relied on its powerful strength to carry out a purge of the entire continent. During this period, countless families were destroyed because of this, and the cultivation methods passed down in their families were destroyed. Due to the power of the everlasting temple, some families had to leave the cloud region and move to the sand region and the cold region to hide. They didn't dare to appear in front of the world for a long time. And the two great families that the everlasting temple couldn't deal with reached an agreement with the everlasting temple during this process. As a result, the Starry Sky Temple and the Sky Region Temple were born. Tracing back to the origin, one could understand why the everlasting temple was the head of the three divine palaces. After that catastrophe, the everlasting temple finally achieved its goal. The newly established families no longer relied on the divine palaces to survive and handed over the resources obtained by the family to the divine palaces. A special environment created a special cultivation environment. If it was in the universe, no matter how powerful the everlasting temple was, it would be impossible for them to monopolize it. After being suppressed by the divine palaces for a long time, one could imagine how much the families hated the divine palaces. Therefore, when he heard that Yang Tan wanted to destroy the everlasting temple, as a member of the family, Chengwu Xingyang was naturally excited. If it was anyone else, Chengwu Xingyang would definitely think that they were bragging, but Yang Tian said such a thing, so it was different. Yang Tian might not know that he had become a top talisman master in the world. Even the powerful Kuang Xing needed Yang Tian's help. In the end, he even wanted to kill Yang Tian. A talisman master could crack the earth of this world. So if someone who came from the same place as the talisman master and had the same attainments in the talisman Dao said that he wanted to destroy the everlasting temple, most people would believe it. If these words were to reach Kuang Xing's ears, he would probably rush back immediately. The divine palaces come from the rune division of the divine palaces and are divided into a total of 7 colors. The lowest level is the white divine palaces of the divine palaces guards, which are actually black and are usually used by the guard captain. These two kinds of divine palaces are also called the black and white divine palaces. Although they're low level, they're the foundation of the divine palaces. Those who have the black and white divine palaces are basically talents that have been nurtured by the divine palaces since young. Above the black, there are yellow, blue, purple, 3 color patterns, and 9 colors. Among the officials, a small number of people have the 9-color divine palaces. Except for the palace master's private palace, they can go anywhere else. Chengwu Xingyang used an extremely fast speed to explain the information about the divine palaces to Yang Tian in detail. This time, Yang Tian was even more confident in the plan he had thought of before. The next step was to create a 9-color divine palaces. Chapter 769. Although I trust you, I still have to leave some restrictions for you. If I let you go, I'll naturally let you go when the time comes. Although Chengwu Xingyang was trustworthy, people's hearts were hard to predict. They could change at will. Yang Tian couldn't let Chengwu Xingyang ruin his plan. After Chengwu Xingyang finished speaking, Yang Tian said coldly without any mercy. Chengwu Xingyang didn't show any dissatisfaction with Yang Tian's actions. If he was Yang Tian, he would do the same. Chengwu Xingyang was curious as to how Yang Tian would restrain him. Yang Tian raised his left hand and slowly tapped Chengwu Xingyang's forehead. A ball of origin power wrapped in mental power condensed at the tip of his index finger. Chengwu Xingyang instinctively leaned his head back when he saw Yang Tian's finger pointing at him. At this moment, a huge claw landed on Chengwu Xingyang's shoulder. Chengwu Xingyang sighed helplessly in his heart. He understood that if he didn't accept Yang Tian's restrictions, Yang Tian would definitely kill him without hesitation. With his current realm, he reckoned that as long as he made any strange movements, the strange beast behind him would immediately kill him. For a cultivator, being controlled by someone was really shameful. However, life was more important than face. Chengwu Xingyang's neck stiffened, allowing Yang Tian's finger to tap on his forehead. At this moment, Chengwu Xingyang felt a ball of strange energy enter his forehead. This was an external force, and a very dangerous one at that. Chengwu Xingyang's consciousness hadn't moved yet, but the energy in his body instinctively wanted to expel Yang Tian's energy from his body. At this moment, Yang Tian's voice sounded, "Don't resist. Otherwise, this ball of energy will explode in your body. Not only will you lose your head, but your entire body will also be corroded. Your family knows about me, Yang Tian. Naturally, you know that I'm not only proficient in runes, but also have a special kind of energy." At this time, Chengwu Xingyang recalled the information about Yang Tian. Sure enough, there was one. It was because Yang Tian's attainments in Talisman Taoism were too eye-catching. Chengwu Xingyang had neglected the fact that he possessed a strange energy with an extremely powerful attacking force. Thinking of the terrible consequences that Yang Tian had mentioned, Chengwu Xingyang hurriedly used his consciousness to control the energy in his body. He wrapped the energy that Yang Tian had touched his forehead and did not expel it. Yang Tian withdrew his hand and smiled at Chengwu Xingyang. Now I can completely trust you. Now, as long as Yang Tian withdrew the spiritual power enveloping the origin power, the ball of origin power would lose control and explode like a bomb. Not to mention Chengwu Xingyang, who was a cultivator in the illusion realm. Even Ku Man, who was an expert in the 100 transformation realm, could only obey Yang Tian's orders. Yang Tian pulled the cloak over his head and covered it again. He said to Chengwu Xingyang, "Now we can go out." Chengwu Xingyang nodded. At this time, Chengwu Xingyang's emotions, which had been aroused by Yang Tian, had completely dissipated. He had calmed down. Compared to before, his mood was somewhat low. The Rune Division was naturally the one who created and distributed the Hall tokens in the Everlasting Temple. During this period, the Rune Division finally had some free time. In the past, the people in the Rune Division had to deal with tens of thousands of Hall tokens almost every day. Among these tens of thousands of Hall tokens, some of them had died outside, and the corresponding Hall token had to be destroyed. The Everlasting Temple was very big and had hundreds of millions of disciples. It was very normal for a few thousand people to die every day. Also, some people's Hall tokens had been damaged and needed to be replaced. There were no backups for Hall tokens. If they were damaged, the process of dealing with them would be extremely troublesome. This was because the other Hall token stored in the Rune Division would also need to be replaced. The remaining small number of Hall tokens needed to be replaced due to a promotion or demotion in status. After Kuang Xing started to take action, he stopped recruiting disciples outside. The workload of the Rune Division was reduced by more than half. There was not much work left, so there were fewer people in the Rune Division. At this time, it was naturally easy to sneak in. Yang Tian had come here to steal a Hall token, and it was a 9-color Hall token. In the Everlasting Temple, only the Division Chief was qualified to have such a Hall token. Only with a 9-colored Hall token could Yang Tian openly go to some of the valuable places in the temple. His plan would be more successful, and in the process, he could also gain a lot of benefits. If he only destroyed the temple, the appearance fee would be too cheap for Yang Tian. If he went to the Rune Division openly, he would probably be intercepted halfway. He had to sneak in without anyone noticing. In the process of moving forward, Yang Tian learned from Chengwu Xingyang the reason for the sudden martial law in the temple. This was because Kuang Xing, who was outside, had heard that the Yuan family had appeared in the Cloud territory. He had also heard that after so many years, the Yuan family had infiltrated the temple, and some of them had even become higher-ups in the temple. The temple was usually very strict with the management of disciples, especially new disciples. If they did not know their background, they would definitely not let them in. Although this news was somewhat groundless, Kuang Xing still made the temple increase its vigilance. This caused a certain amount of trouble for Yang Tian's plan. Fortunately, with Chengwu Xingyang leading the way, they did not encounter anyone along the way. They smoothly approached the Rune Division of the Everlasting Temple. The Rune Division of the Everlasting Temple was very large. It was at least 100 times the size of the Hui family. The Rune Division was divided into dozens of divisions that handled affairs. Yang Tian wanted to enter the storehouse where the trump cards were stored. Every Hall token had a trump card, so it was convenient to check its authenticity. Of course, this situation was extremely rare. The creation of the temple's Hall tokens was extremely complicated and could not be replicated by ordinary people. The advantage of having a trump card was that other than distinguishing between real and fake, it could also be used to know whether the temple's disciples were alive or dead from a long distance away. When Yang Tian had killed Ku Man, Kuang Xing had rushed over in time because of the Hall token. The Hall token was actually a communication device. After listening to Chengwu Xingyang's description of the Hall token, Yang Tian felt that it could be made even more perfect. The Rune Division was one of the most important institutions of the Everlasting Temple. Not only did it cover a large area, but it also had an excellent environment. There were actually benefits to being under martial law. There were no longer people who came out to play. Under Qingwu Xingyang's guidance, the two people and one dragon passed through a forest. After carefully passing through the messy mountain rocks for half a day, they finally reached their destination. Dozens of meters ahead was the place where the Rune Division stored the trump cards. Not only were there many guards guarding such an important place, but it was also covered in layers of rune arrays. Because of the martial law, the more sophisticated and energy-consuming defensive rune arrays were also activated. Qingwu Xingyang said to Yang Tian, "I turned off the positioning function on the blue token, so I can't get close. If you want to go in, you have to go through the rune arrays outside first." Yang Tian looked at a group of temple guards patrolling in the distance and said with a smile, "That's not difficult. The only difficult thing is that we don't know the place." After saying that, Yang Tian patted Qingwu Xingyang's shoulder. Immediately after, he stood up and folded his hands in front of his chest. Then, he quickly changed his hands, forming afterimages. During this process, invisible energy fluctuations were emitted from Yang Tian's hands. In a moment, Qingwu Xingyang, who was standing next to Yang Tian, suddenly felt that his body was enveloped by a strange energy. The reason for this feeling was that the surrounding air flow, temperature, sound, and even light had changed. "Okay, let's go in." At this moment, Yang Tian's voice suddenly sounded. Oh, Qingwu Xingyang couldn't help but be stunned. He thought to himself, "Isn't this too simple?" For the current Yang Tian and the Strange program, it was that simple. From a rune master, the Strange program had obtained enough rune information. In addition, Yang Tian's body had undergone some modifications, so the cracking process was naturally simple. Compared to the rune arrays set up by the rune master, the rune arrays made by the rune masters of the Everlasting Temple were really not enough. Back then, when Yang Tian cracked the architect palace of the Superstar Divinity Temple, it was not as simple as this. Qingwu Xingyang walked slowly and lightly behind Yang Tian. They walked out of the messy mountain rocks and entered through an open side door less than 20 meters away from the guards. At this time, Yang Tian and Qingwu Xingyang were surrounded by the rune arrays calculated by the Strange program. Not only could they easily pass through the defensive rune arrays outside the runes department, but they also had a strong stealth effect. In the runes department's warehouse, there were only a few people inside, slowly sorting out some messy things. Qingwu Xingyang was not familiar with this place because he had never been here before. Yang Tian walked through it for half an hour before he found an inconspicuous warehouse. While no one was paying attention, he cracked the layers of rune arrays outside the door, opened the door, and walked in. The moment the door opened, Yang Tian winked at the little blue dragon lying on his shoulder. The little blue dragon understood Yang Tian's meaning and rushed in as fast as it could, because there was someone inside. The reason why Yang Tian noticed this inconspicuous small warehouse was because the rune arrays here were the most complicated and precise in the entire runes department's warehouse. The warehouse that stored the black and white plates, as well as the other colors, were all very large. In the previous half an hour, Yang Tian had been searching nonstop. He had even seen the 3-color plates, but he had not seen the 9-color plates. Yang Tian had a feeling that this small storeroom must be the one where the 9-color palace token was stored. Because there were not many secretaries, the place where the plates were stored was definitely not big, but it was the most secure place. This was indeed the place where the 9-color plates were stored. An old man with the position of manager was sitting behind a wide table, dozing off. Although the door was opened, it was not broken by violence, so the old man did not care and thought that a colleague had come in. The old man did not even open his eyes. When he heard the sound of the wind, it was already too late. Just like how the little blue dragon had subdued Qingwu Xingyang, the old man fell asleep in an instant. This time, the little blue dragon had used a bit of strength and even used the energy in his body. He would probably not wake up until he fell asleep for a few hours. A few hours was enough for Yang Tian. Very soon, Yang Tian opened the metal cabinet that stored the 9-colored palace token that was locked by a talisman array. There were many small compartments in the cabinet, and they were divided into many layers. Now, Yang Tian only needed to make 9-color plates, then make another trump card and put inside. Then, he would have completed his purpose of coming here. With the 9-color plates, Yang Tian would be like a Trojan horse program in the temple. There are many secretaries in the temple. Which identity is suitable for me? Yang Tian looked at the densely packed cards in the cabinet and turned around to ask Chengwu Xingyang. Chengwu Xingyang thought for a while, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He said, "The most suitable one is the guest division." Guest division? That's right. Chengwu Xingyang said, "The people in the guest division are extremely mysterious in the temple. It's usually very hard to see one." After Chengwu Xingyang's explanation, Yang Tian understood. It turned out that the guest division was an organization set up by the temple to win over the experts outside. The status of these people in the limitless temple was the same as the guest elders in the superstar divine temple. They only listened to the temple master. Most of the time, they listened to orders and did not listen to orders. Getting such an identity is not bad, Yang Tian thought. Chapter 770. The little blue dragon looked at the restrained old man. Yang Tian found a newly made 9-colored palace token on the old man's table. The 9-colored palace token looked much better than the blue palace token that Chengwu Xingyang had. It was sword-shaped and looked like a small sword. The hilt was red and was made of red jade. There was a small hole on it that could be threaded and hung around the waist. There were 8 colors on the sword. Different colors could be seen from different angles in the same place. In Yang Tian's eyes, this thing was simply an exquisite piece of art. Yang Tian held it in his hand and felt its weight. It was very light, but he could feel that the material was very fine through his skin. Under normal circumstances, it should be very heavy. However, the talisman array on it reduced the weight of the palace token by more than half. After Yang Tian weighed it, he separated a bit of his mind power and wrapped it around the 9-colored palace token. Yang Tian had already observed Chengwu Xingyang's blue palace token. There were more than 300 talisman arrays on it. It was simply an integrated circuit board. This 9-colored palace token had even more talisman arrays on it. There were more than 1,100 of them. It was even more intricate than the blue palace token. In fact, most of the talisman arrays on it were keys to some of the talisman arrays in the temple. The talisman arrays on the palace token allowed the holder to enter and exit the array freely. If such intricate things were made by humans without the help of the strange program, it would be impossible to make them successfully in a short time. In fact, such things were really made by the talisman masters of the temple. The other palace tokens that were mass-produced were made with the help of semi-intelligent small robots provided by the machinery race. Naturally, the everlasting temple would not let the machinery race make something as important as the 9-colored palace token. On the table, there were tools that Yang Tian had never seen before. The talisman arrays on the 9-colored palace token were not difficult. The strange program quickly calculated and recorded them. During this process, the strange program also deduced the structure of some of the talisman arrays in the temple. If he wanted to make another one, there would not be enough time. Yang Tian used his mind power and the guidance of the strange program to quickly complete the 9-colored palace token in his hand. The whole process took about an hour. As for the trump card, it was much simpler. After Yang Tian observed a few pieces, he came up with a complete design. After another half an hour, the trump card that was connected to Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token was completed. During his time in the Yggdrasil, Yang Tian had been guided by Chu Yin Gang, so he had become even more proficient in using his mind power. In a way, the trump card made by Yang Tian's mental power was the most intricate among all of his trump cards. Even the palace plates and trump cards made with micro-machines could not compare to it. This was the effect of mental power controlling objects on a microscopic level. After making the trump cards, Yang Tian went to the cabinet where the trump cards were kept. He placed over 100 palace cards in a random order and placed the newly made trump cards inside. This way, even if the old man in front of him woke up, it would take some time to find which one was fake. Of course, Yang Tian wouldn't wake him up now. Yang Tian personally penetrated a trace of his force into the old man's brain. The old man, whom Yang Tian did not know, was only a cultivator at the peak of the illusion realm. It was probably because he cultivated Talisman Path that his boundary couldn't be improved faster. Yang Tian had seen many people like this. In one's life, it was not a sad thing to give up a comfortable life for a hobby, even for one's own life. Yang Tian did not plan to take the old man's life. Although the force was small, it was extremely condensed and existed in the old man's brain. Given the old man's cultivation base in the illusion realm, it would take at least a few days to dissolve the force. A few days were enough for Yang Tian. Moreover, the advantage of doing this was that it would take a long time to find out the reason why the old man was unconscious. Let's go. After casually putting the 9-colored palace token into his storage bracelet, Yang Tian turned around and said to Chengwu Xingyang, who was in a daze. That's it. Chengwu Xingyang's mind was filled with thoughts. It was really incomparable when compared to others. He could be considered an elite of the Chengwu family. After mingling in the temple for so many years, he could not compare to what Yang Tian had done in half a day. Now that Yang Tian had the 9-colored palace token and the temple master was not here, one could imagine what the temple would become. Chengwu Xingyang followed behind Yang Tian in a daze. He did not know when they had left the rune department. Chengwu Xingyang only woke up when they entered a small forest next to the rune department. Where are we going next? Chengwu Xingyang asked curiously. Yang Tian said with a smile, of course to the guest apartment. Lead the way. Chengwu Xingyang was stunned for a moment before saying, oh, okay, please follow me. The guest apartment occupies a large area, but there are very few people inside. Those guards definitely don't know how many guests there are in the guest apartment. After exiting the forest, Yang Tian and Chengwu Xingyang walked openly on the main road of the temple. After the martial law was enforced, many guards were sent to guard the key points of the road. Usually, these guards were a little lazy, but now they looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Not only were there more guards, but some of the key roads were also activated with formations that had been used for a long time. With the 9-colored palace token, the road was unimpeded. If they encountered an inspection, Yang Tian would immediately show the 9-colored palace token that he had just obtained. When they saw the palace token in Yang Tian's hand, the guards who inspected his identity were all very respectful to him. Of course, some of the guard leaders knew how to distinguish the authenticity of the palace token. These people even had special tools in their hands. Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token was completely connected with the main formation of the entire temple. This was originally something made by the rune department, and Yang Tian had only modified it a little. The guard leaders naturally could not find any problems. Under the guidance of Chengwu Xingyang, Yang Tian quickly arrived at the guest apartment. The guest apartment was indeed very large. Just the main hall alone occupied more than 100 acres, and there were dozens of auxiliary halls beside it. Such a large place was comparable to the rune department, but the number of people was 100 times less than the rune department. Most of the cultivators who had 9-colored palace tokens in the guest apartment did not stay in the temple for various reasons. There were even some people who had never come to the guest apartment, although they had received the 9-colored palace token. Therefore, as to how many guests there were in the guest apartment, even the person in charge of the guest apartment was not very clear about such matters. They could only find out if they went to the rune department to inquire. The everlasting temple was very large, and the resources allocated to each department were different. The guest department, which did not do anything but consumed a large amount of resources, offended many people. The relationship between the deacons in charge of the various departments in the Divine Hall was not very friendly. Therefore, even if people from the guest department went to the rune department to inquire, they would be made difficult. Yang Tian entered the main entrance of the cleaning department. After walking for a distance, he was stopped by a thin, middle-aged man in a blue robe. What surprised Yang Tian was that this blue-robed man was actually an expert of the Hundred Changes realm. This is Yuli Si, the head of the Qinghu department. Chengwu Xingyang recognized this blue-robed man and whispered in Yang Tian's ear. If he did not have the 9-colored palace token, Yang Tian would have turned and fled when he met Yuli. But now, although he was in the Destiny realm, he had the 9-colored palace token. According to the rules of the temple, he was of the same level as Yuli. Yang Tian was naturally not afraid. Who are you? How come I have never seen you before? After Yuli stopped Yang Tian, he sized up Yang Tian and asked indifferently. Yang Tian knew that this was not the time to admit defeat. He said in a proud tone, "It's normal that you have never seen me before, because this is my first time in the guest department. As for who I am, when the temple master returns, you can ask him personally." Yang Tian's words made Yuli grit his teeth in anger. This was because Yang Tian had reason to be proud. As a member of the guest department, he had the 9-colored palace token and did not need to care about these deities' hall officials. He was very unyielding in front of the temple master, not to mention a mere deity. Yuli suppressed the anger in his heart and reached out to Yang Tian. "Can you at least let me see your palace token?" Yang Tian did not hesitate. He took out the palace token from his storage bracelet and casually threw it to Yuli. "So you're called Miejan. What are you doing in the rune department?" Yuli carefully looked at Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token. After learning about Yang Tian's fake identity from the array glyphs on the palace token, he returned the palace token to Yang Tian and asked again. Miejan was a name that Yang Tian had casually given. He had originally wanted to change the name to Miedian, but he thought that it would cause people to have some wild and fanciful thoughts. Therefore, he chose a side of the word Dian. The characters of this world were different from Chinese characters. No matter what, Yuli would not associate it with the words Miedian. Yang Tian's face was covered by a black cloth. Yuli really wanted to see Yang Tian's true face, but he knew that this was an unreasonable request. It was not just a guest apartment. Many people in the deity's hall did not usually show their true faces to others. Moreover, it was very easy for a cultivator to change their appearance. The only thing that did not change was the aura emitted from their body. In other words, it was the energy fluctuation that was the mark of a cultivator. If Kuang Xing were here at this moment, and since the aura emitted from Yang Tian's body, he would definitely recognize Yang Tian immediately. Of course, if he really encountered Kuang Xing, Yang Tian could also rely on the array glyphs to conceal his aura from Kuang Xing. What was he doing here? Faced with Yuli's question, Yang Tian smiled and said, "I'm here to take back what originally belonged to me. After so many years, I should have accumulated a lot, right?" As soon as Yang Tian's voice fell, Yuli's cheeks could not help but twitch a few times. This time, Yuli completely dispelled his doubts about Yang Tian's identity. The people in the guest apartment who held the 9-colored palace token had a mysterious identity. They usually did not appear in the deity's hall, but the tributes they received from time to time were always given out. In fact, those who could become the holders of the 9-colored palace token in the guest apartment of the deity's hall did not care for the tributes of the deity's hall. However, there were also a small number of people who would come to receive the tributes once in a while. Each time, to Yuli, it was an unbearable experience. If these people came to receive once every period of time, it still would not be much. But accumulating over a period of time, it would be a huge sum. 1,371 tributes. Although his heart ached, Yuli still took out a very tattered book made of who knows what material from his storage bracelet and calculated a sum for Yang Tian. This was an account book. There were no people's names recorded on it. It just recorded the things that the guest apartment's guests received every period of time. After calculating, Yuli gritted his teeth and said, "Please follow this old man to the storeroom." Finished talking, Yuli turned around and left. Yang Tian smiled slightly and immediately followed after. The Chengwu Xingyang who came together with Yang Tian felt that his brain was not quite enough to process at this time. He stayed in the deity's hall for so many years. It was his first time witnessing the deity's hall's massive loophole. An outsider, as long as they held the 9-colored palace token, could receive things from the guest apartment. If this were to spread out, it would be very hard for people to believe, right? However, the truth was right in front of Chengwu Xingyang. Of course, it was not that no one knew about this loophole, but to do it as easily as Xiang Tian, the difficulty was probably not as easy as killing Quang Xing. Chengwu Xingyang, who was following beside Yang Tian, had already been ignored. The blue token that he had could at most enter the main door of the guest apartment. He did not have the qualifications to enter inside. Therefore, he followed behind Yang Tian. In front of the door to the main hall, he was blocked by an invisible force. As for Yang Tian and Yu Li, they walked in without any obstructions. Yu Li led Yang Tian through layers of halls before finally arriving at the storage hall of the guest apartment. In fact, Yu Li led Yang Tian in a big circle. This was a cautious approach to test whether the 9-colored palace token on Yang Tian's body was real or not. The result was that it could not be any more real, unless someone in the Runes division wanted to cheat the guest apartment. The Runes division would not do such a thing. After leading Yang Tian to the storage hall, Yu Li did not have the face to stay any longer. After instructing a few subordinates, he turned around and prepared to leave. Yu Li thought that instead of being angry with someone like Mie Zhan, he might as well go back and teach a few descendants. Please wait a moment. Unexpectedly, just as Yu Li turned around, Yang Tian's voice rang out. Yu Li turned around and looked at Yang Tian. When he saw the smiling expression in Yang Tian's eyes, anger once again rose in his heart. If Yang Tian did not have the 9-color palace token, he would have slapped Yang Tian. What is it? Yu Li asked. Yang Tian smiled. I want to ask if I can walk a few rounds around the temple after taking the item. This place is really good. Hearing Yang Tian's words, Yu Li said in a contemptuous tone, Go ahead. After saying that, he walked away. After leaving, Yu Li calmed himself down. He understood that the reason why he was angry at Yang Tian was because he was jealous of Yang Tian. At the same time, he was dissatisfied with reality. After Yu Li left, Yang Tian received a pile of good items. I didn't expect that I would get paid, even though I did not do anything. Yang Tian looked at the items that the managers of the guest apartment took out and could not help but laugh in his heart. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.